Hello, everybody. We'll be listening to this on replay. Um, just waiting for Matt to show up, and then we're going to get this thing going. So I'm just going to go on mute, and hopefully he's here soon. I guess I'll send him a message or something too. Oh, look at that! I
Hey,
barely got.
Michael.
Hey, how are you? I
You
barely
prefer
got
Mike
the.
or Michael? You like Michael or Mike?
Oh, it doesn't matter to me. Either one's
Either
fine.
one? Yeah, Matt or Matthew's fine with me too. So like using
Yeah.
nicknames and then use a formal thing. I switch between both, so that's all right.
Yeah.
Just for I
I
check.
find it's when, like, I don't know about you, but when I was younger, I preferred Mike,
Yeah,
and then as I've gotten older, I've kind of switched over. Like Michael sounds more mature, which is
that's right.
ironic because I'm a child. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah, so
gotcha.
yeah, I was saying I barely I popped the room open, and then I was planning to just go on mute until
That's all
you
right.
came in, and I barely got I barely got those words in. And there you are. So be
All right.
curious to see who comes by. I had a lot of messages about tonight.
Okay.
So, but it's just going to be you and I on stage.
Yeah.
Just so that we can have a clear conversation. I don't want to have
Mm-hmm.
I'm not interested in interruptions and shit like that. So,
All right.
and I was hoping to just have a talk about just kind of general stuff. What you believe and why, and what I do and why, and
Yep.
see where it kind of forms organically.
That's fine with me.
So, um, you're the guest, so to speak. So,
Yeah.
the first thing I got to ask you is what's with the Chihuahua, dude? Like,
That is my Chihuahua, actually. That's
that
my
is actually your
well.
dog.
That is actually my dog. Yeah, we put doggles on her on vacation one time. We're visiting up in different state, and just had her in the car there for a little bit. We bought these things called doggles, and they look really cool in the store. Thought, hey, we got the pet with us, so we'll put it on her. They lasted like 10 seconds, enough to get the picture taken, and then they were immediately off and never put on again. So that's a keepsake right there, and it makes a pretty cool avatar. So,
Yeah,
yep,
that's funny.
my
I
Chihuahua Jasmine. Yeah, it's a little girl.
Jasmine.
So
That's it.
yeah,
Yeah, we we have a dog too, and it's my wife is constantly trying to dress him up for a holiday, St. Patrick's Day, Christmas, blah blah blah, and he's just like, he just kind of looks at her like, Mom, what are you doing to me?
I think
All the other dogs are gonna laugh at me.
the only other thing I
Um,
put on her was like I had one of these like wraparound bow ties. It was like a pet bow tie. That was the only other thing I put on her, like around her neck. Got a picture of her with that on it. Put pretty cute in that. So yeah, never tried the
that's
dresses
funny.
or anything like that on her. Put with the
That's
full
funny
clothes.
that it's actually your. That's funny
Yeah,
that I figured that was just something you found on the mighty Google image search
yeah.
and
She was
went with
actually
that.
taking it in
So
the car. She was sitting on my wife's lap and then facing towards me in the driver's seat, and that's why I snapped the picture. So,
that's
so
funny.
pretty cool
That's funny.
perspective. Yeah, I always get had pretty cool comments about it. They're like, "That's a funny avatar. Or, your dog's cute," and some people assume it's my dog, and they get it right. But people think it's like someone created on the internet or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and like I said, that was my thought. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
there's no way that this is like in my head. I'm like, yeah, there's no way that's real. Like, I mean, that this is just so obviously, photoshopped or something like that.
yeah.
Because I can't, like, I could imagine my wife trying to put goggles on our Finn, and it's just like, yeah, he ain't having that.
I could have photoshopped made her eyes bigger. It would look really freaky though. But yeah, doggles already got some pretty bug eyes there, so
Yeah,
could
yeah.
have talked it up a little
Alrighty.
bit. Yeah,
So you said
I'll kick it off.
so you're in the U.S. Whereabouts in the U.S. are you?
I'm in the northeast.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm just east of Toronto.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, okay. We cross border shop in Buffalo sometimes, and yeah, I generally like getting into the U.S. when we can. It's been
Okay.
we've never had any bad experiences. So
Cool.
so hello one way. Oh, look at this. There we go. Some people
Yeah,
coming
I'll
in.
start flowing in. That's all right.
Yeah. So yeah. So you're the guest, so to speak. So let's chat.
Sure. I want to start off.
I'm an atheist.
Yeah. I've had some runs before, but never good meaty discussion though. So uh, Yeah, that's where we get down to, yeah, we're coming from completely antithetical worldviews.
Hmm.
So we'll just have to dive into the meat of that. But
So
you had said you had a background, you were raised Christian, or
yep, yeah, it was, yep. It's
okay.
interesting. It's interesting you say that. Like
Mm-hmm.
so, like I do have a worldview.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I think we all, and I guess maybe it's fair to say I take a different kind of look at it. When I think about the world, the word worldview, I interpret that as basically the lens at which I look at stuff. Is that accurate? Like, do you use it the same way?
Yeah, the way we use it is more just more technical, but that's just a good overarching perspective. How you view the things in the world that exist, your view of reality, how you view
Mm,
knowledge, and how you should live in light of both of those. So that's covering the three main branches of philosophy. And the technical
yeah,
term for that is your metaphysical view, and that's going to involve different types of things that exist, different ontologies. So I won't get overly technical with the verbiage here, but it's just parsing out the lens. And then that grounds how you know things. It's got to ground how you have knowledge because you're making epistemic claims about what exists. And then,
mhm.
hey, ethics is relevant there because ought we be telling the truth about what exists and what we know? Yeah. So ethics can't be divorced from that. So there's symbiotic categories that depend upon one another. You can't view one of them in a vacuum. Even if you attempt to, you're bringing import from the other two categories, no matter which category you try to vacuumize. So that's just breaking down the component parts of a worldview. There are a network of presuppositions. I'll use Bons's definition because there's a pretty ironclad definition of it. It's a network or a system of presuppositions that are not verified by the procedures of natural science, but that by which you interpret and interrelate everything else. Even the very methods of science are based upon your metaphysical presuppositions.
Interesting.
Does that
So
help?
when you said ethics, do
Yes.
you? Because I've always kind of looked at like ethics and morality pretty, I mean, intrinsic, inextricably tied together, right? And
Mm-hmm.
almost synonyms, right?
Yeah, I'd say they're
Ethics and morality.
synonymous. We can have a subset of aesthetics within there, the moral category of aesthetics. Yeah, I would put that as a subcategory under ethics.
Interesting, yeah. And
Yeah,
you also said metaphysical perspective, and you know what? That's something, honestly, that's something I don't think a lot about.
alrighty.
Is a metaphysics, a metaphysic. Um,
Well, there's like kind of two different ways of doing it. I mean, the actual Greek term there, metaphysis, is that which lies behind the nature, or that which binds the natures of things together. The point one isn't a monist, but it's just come generally accepted as in ontology and metaphysics are kind of used interchangeably. I kind of see ontology as a subset because if you're not a monist, then you're not equivalent. Your metaphysics can be made up of multiple components of different ontologies. And even from a Christian perspective, we have God's nature, which is distinct from the creation's nature, and the things within creation have different natures. The angels do than humans. Humans have different natures than animals. Animals have different natures than plants. Et cetera, et cetera. We can ferret out different ontological categories within a biblical worldview, but that's not necessarily one you would hold to. But I'm just laying out our landscape of things. So, but that would make up
mhm.
your metaphysical outlook, and it's kind of like the all uber category by which all those little subcategories of different ontologies would be encompassed in. So.
Yeah, I
That
think
helps
mine's
parse it
just a
out.
little bit. Yeah, I think mine's just a little bit more simplistic than that. And then so oh yeah, the one thing I was going to say about worldviews is so my worldview is made up of lots of different stuff, and my feelings about deities is actually only a pretty small part of that. So I'm curious as to like when you think about what your worldview, how much of your world, like how you look at the, like if we're looking, the what I said before, the lens at which we view the world through,
Hmm.
how much of your worldview is is the part of your identity that you would call Christian?
It's all encompassing because
You think it's
Christianity is
all
a whole
okay?
worldview.
All right,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. There's like a Christianity bucket over there, and then the work bucket over here, and the social life over here. I go, God's at the center, and then everything extends from Him. Man's not at the center, and God's just an extension of man. You know, so or just a
Oh,
separate
okay, yeah.
bucket. Within man's categories or whatever. As He's the sovereign king. sovereign creator and sustainer of everything. Therefore, everything is under that purview. Because man is a secondary. Well, I don't want to be leap ahead, but just nip on that
No, you're fine.
point that God's the first interpreter of everything. He knows all things exhaustively, a sovereign creator and sustainer of everything. And man, as created in his image, is a finite secondary reinterpreter. So man doesn't uh, in experience the facts wholly new. They're already pre-interpreted facts, and he ought to think God's thoughts after him, imaging God.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, because I think I like the term you used, the different buckets, because that is kind of how I guess I work, for lack of a better term, how I work my worldview. Because I do have kind of, like my social
Okay.
life bucket, my, my, and different things like that. And that's an interesting way of looking at it, because that's how that's a really, I think, an accurate interpretation. I hadn't thought about it that way before. Yeah, I have a, I guess I have a bucket view.
I think in categories like that. I'm an accountant by trade, so I think in categorical buckets and then sub buckets under that. So, like those three main things I've laid out. So, there's the illustration I always use with people just to break down, just the dialectic goes on between believer and unbeliever and the
Mm,
parsing out the worldviews. Just you have a piece of paper in front of you, draw a line down the middle of it, put me on one side, put you on the other. We'll draw three little squares on each side. We'll put those three main branches of philosophy there. Then you can have all these little sub buckets within those big squares.
mm.
But those are the broadest range of categories we're dealing with from a worldview. But what's interesting here, and this is why I press people on there, is going, okay, those are a network of presuppositions we have there, but we believe they're systematically united. We drew a line from each one of those main buckets or rectangles or whatever.
So
So
sorry,
we
when you
unify
say we, you mean you
each,
and
yeah,
or
each side of
meaning
the
everybody?
page. Yeah,
Oh, okay,
we drew a
everybody.
line from each one of those squares so that they all meet at a point from each one of those categories, and then there we draw a circle. For the Christian worldview, we put the ontological trinity there, the triune God, creator and sustainer of all things. When we draw a line, dividing that there, we have the creator-creation distinction. Those are two
Right,
different levels of being from the Christianity standpoint, the Christian worldview standpoint. But that same worldview skeleton is flipped to the other side. You want to have unity amongst all the things in those categories of diversity. Therefore, there must be ultimate unity. Okay, that's why we bring up the ultimate and the ultimate grounding here. So if you want to have actual unity, it's not pure potentiality or not real. You want to say it's actual, then you got to have, as the most basic philosophical issue, unity amongst diversity, even predicate, even speak cogently. Because when you do speak in normal everyday language, you're instantiating a subject and predicating upon a universal. That's the distinction between particular and universal, that they are distinguished from themselves, but they're not so radically disjuncted that it's incoherent, yet they're not the same thing. It's a problem of the one and the many. Okay, so that just lays out the overarching landscape, because instead of getting to the minutia within the worldview or any particular things within it,
mm,
we got to look at the broader skeleton here before we start laying out some concrete detail of it. So once people understand the worldview skeleton and saying, oh, look, believer and unbeliever, they have the same schematic, the same abstract skeleton, but they have different content there. Okay. Does that make
interesting.
sense thus far? I don't want to go too far ahead, but that's just like
No,
kind
you
of
know
go
what?
step by
It's really
step.
interesting,
All right.
and I actually appreciate the way you laid it out. I don't know that, um, and I thus far um, I'm appreciating the tenor of the discussion, because all too often, and you know this, I'm certainly not gonna say anything that's revelatory here. Um, People from our respective camps can, and I think sometimes do, spend too much time waiting for their turn to talk rather than listening to what the other person is saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we have the capacity here, if we don't do that, to actually, maybe even make some headway and have a good conversation. I just want to acknowledge a couple of people. Oh man, John left already. He always leaves before I get a chance to say hi to him. John and I go back a while. I'm sure he's told you we had some tag team debates on Modern Day Debate a couple of years back, and I've actually come to appreciate John. I don't find him as obnoxious as some of my fellow atheist friends do. But anyway, so okay, so that's interesting. So why
Mhm.
don't we? Yeah, I think this is good. Why don't you pick one of those three things? I don't care which one it is, and let's
Mhm.
talk about. Let's just pick them off one by one. And I mean, depending on
Yeah.
how it goes,
Well, I was
maybe
going to put some more
maybe
labels
this is
on it, but
part
I
one.
would. Yeah. Well, I mean,
Okay.
that's just step one right there. So we got that basic labeling there. There are the categories, but then your location of ultimacy would be like I'd say a question mark, unless you're going to name and claim it, like the Muslim will and say that's Allah. But obviously, you're not a Muslim, so there's some ultimate ground of being. But I listened to your previous discussion with like Jay Robbins and stuff like that, and you said, "Well, your epistemology can't get you there, but you're affirming that there must be absolute truth, but that's just a mere formal claim. But you can't say we can attain it. It's unattainable. It's mysterious. So it's just a big question mark, right? It'd be in your circle that unifies all those things within that category there, right?
So maybe. So my and like I freely admit that I do have some presuppositions. I think
Oh
and
yeah,
like I said before, whether they are you call them presuppositions or properly basic beliefs or axioms. I don't care what you want to call them. To the best of my knowledge, this is something that I do think about because I'm always trying to check myself. I think it's a
all
reasonable
right.
thing to do. And to the best of my knowledge, I have two. And so my ultimate, to the best of my knowledge, is reality. Like that is my quote unquote
Mm-hmm.
ultimate grounding point. That reality's real. And so I guess it's probably fair to say, and please correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not interested in misrepresenting you. Where you ground, where you would say the name it and claim it, like you said a moment ago with a Muslim, like someone like Khalilullah, for example, who would say Allah, and you would say Yahweh, God, whatever, however you say his name, Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever.
His formal name
And I,
there is covenantal name, but yeah, I just just said for just placing in there the ontological trinity, so the triune God of Scripture. Yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah, okay. And we'll just like okay, so with that understanding, we'll just call it God. Um, and I appreciate your willingness to not linger in obscurity.
Yeah, I'd be
Um,
concrete about it. But well, that's where I
yeah.
push back on you and say, well, this is the issue there I would have, to where this is my challenge to the unbelieving worldview, and this is what Van Til's main point was too. We're not when I'm laying out my side, I'm being concrete about it. I'm laying out specific detail, concrete detail. I'm talking about not some abstract notion of God and just is some ethereal concept,
Mm.
whatever, you know. But that's just an abstract formality. I go, no, I'm being concrete about it. This specific God with these specific attributes, namely his triunity and stuff like that. And I can lay out more attributes, but that's kind of a pivotal one because I say you got to deal with unity and diversity first and foremost to even speak intelligibly. So that's like a key point I'll bring up. But then when you say reality, that is just an abstract set, which a lot of people brought up to. Or when someone says they won't say reality, I've had some just say laws of logic because I want intelligibility. If I just make the laws of logic ultimate, doesn't that do the job? I go, well, that's a problem when you have just some formal abstract even when they say laws of logic, that's not accounting for the unity amongst them. So they got to go one step further to have ultimate unity. But that must also ground plurality as well. When you have just an abstract singular concept that's non-personal and is non-causal and doesn't bring about the physical universe in and of itself because it's immaterial, doesn't stand in causal relations. There's a lot of problems when people pivot or when they get to that point there where they bottom out and it's just something purely formal and abstract, some impersonal, formal, absolute. And it doesn't change either. So it's not accounting for change or flux. So there's a lot of problems when you bottom out to an impersonal, formal, absolute like that that's abstract. There's like
So,
six,
so
seven
it,
philosophical problems to bring up there.
yeah, so it's funny you've said abstract a few times, and I don't I
Yes.
don't view reality as abstract. Like I mean, reality is real, don't you think?
Well, I mean, that sounds very tautological there. The
Sure, it is.
reality
Yeah.
is real
Yep.
and real is reality. I go, well, that's just a very tightly wound ideological circle there. It's just a tightly wound tautology. I go, when you talk about reality, it's a concept. What is that thing in and of itself? You say, well, it's just the enveloping of all the distinct materialistic particulars. If you just assume just naturalistic materialism, there are no really immaterial things. So reality itself, in and of itself, would have to be a material thing, like in its very
Actually,
essence, not
I'm
just
not
as a
sure. I'm not sure that there's
conglomeration of.
no. Yeah, I don't think I'm necessarily a strict materialist.
All right.
I'll give you props like straight away. From a philosophical perspective, you could probably run circles around me, and
I'm not going to do that. I'm going
if
to
oh
walk you
no
through
no
stuff.
no no
So,
no
yeah.
um, and if you if you played a dishonest hand, you could probably during this conversation make it so I ended up saying what you wanted me to say. But I don't think that you're going to do that.
Nope.
Now, I don't necessarily know that there aren't immaterial things. I'm not sure that we can know that. Um, so I'm not necessarily a strict materialist.
Okay.
Um, when I say, and it's interesting when you said, that reality being a concept. This is something that Robin said to me as well,
Hmm.
and I've spent some time thinking about it, and I'm not sure I could disagree any more strongly than I do, because reality's concrete. Like real, and I know it's you said tautology, and I think you're right, and I think that and I also accept that some circular reasoning is necessary. Like
We're not on that yet, though. We're not on
we
that yet.
can't justify
Let's
our reasoning without using our reasoning, for
give
example.
you an analogy here to see if I can get something parallel here. When you say like you got a group of 10 marbles,
Mm,
that's just saying a group, a set of it. But the set in and
sure.
of itself is not physical. That's just a collection of physical things. You want to call it a collection, just like a collection is an abstract concept. A collection
Mm,
is not a physical thing in and of itself. We're talking about in its of itself essence, not the things that you want to collate together. That's another abstract term. You just got to do it when you're thinking in categories, groups, classes, types. Like all those things in and of themselves are purely conceptual and abstract. They're not a physical thing in and of themselves. I go, hand me a type. You're like, what? Hand you a what? I mean, you lose that in your sock drawer or something like that? I can't hand you a type. It's not a physical thing. It's purely abstract. So when you do that with the things in the universe, that's accounting for unity. And you want to use unity and diversity there. I go, that's a very thing in question. We got to ground, okay, how
mm,
we actually have this, and what ultimately does ground that. Not just go, well, it's just automatically unified. It's diverse. We have unity amongst diversity. You don't have to answer it. I go, that's a very thing in question. But just saying reality is just using an abstract unifier to ground all the distinct materialistic particulars. That's just using categorization or whatever. So you're just using reality as a category when you're
mm.
all said and done to envelop all the materialistic particulars. Okay, that's fine, but that's still making the abstract concept more ultimate than those things because it overarches them and encompasses them. So your ultimate uh, broadest context is that concept, which is not material in and of itself. You're just saying, and I think that's where you're making a composition division fallacy there. What's true of the part is also true of the whole. Since the particulars are material, then the whole must be material. I think that's a
That's interesting.
composition fallacy. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's interesting.
I'll try to be quick with my rebuttals here, but it'll take me a minute or two. But
Oh no,
I'm
you're
going to try
totally
and time
fine.
myself. Okay. That's the key
No,
crux there.
no,
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't have a timer going, man.
Okay.
I'm a fucking blabbermouth.
Yeah.
So like what
I can be too.
we may pick up on something, right? And I may go on just on a verbal tirade. So you're totally fine. don't
I'll try
don't
not to
give
trigger
that
you.
yeah don't give that another thought. But what you said is interesting. It certainly gave me something to think about.
All right.
Um, okay, so okay, so let's move on to something else. Like what was something else you want to talk about?
Okay. Well, that you understand the issues there. I mean, that's something you
Oh yeah,
truly,
no.
when you listen to over just the problems when,
Hmm.
you call it problems with a formal abstract ultimate. You know, the people
Hmm.
can pivot to reality, laws of logic, quote unquote matter. I mean, that's purely conceptual in and of itself. No one's observed matter universally. Not things that are material. I mean, matter in and of itself. Energy, or quote unquote context, and any number of things. I've only seen a variety of things that people will do that, and I'm sure even in Van Til's career, that's what he was dealing with. We're laying out a worldview. We're talking about a concrete worldview, not something formal or abstract, because there's lots of philosophical problems with
It's
that.
really interesting, and this is something that
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to be like, I mean, and I'll be as honest with you as I possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
But when you say that no one has observed material, I mean,
Matter.
pardon me, matter. But
Yeah.
isn't stuff made up of matter?
Yeah. I didn't say things are made of the things that are material. I said
Right.
matter in and of itself is a
Okay. So
concept. Yeah.
okay. So how would you define matter?
No, I say something that's material is extended in space. I'll take the Descartesian definition of their distinction between material and immaterial. Something material is extended in space. Something immaterial is not extended in space.
Okay, that's fine.
All
Yeah,
right.
I
Yeah.
don't have an issue with that.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Uh, okay. So on that, well, I think I laid out all the issues with that I can think of there. It's impersonal, immaterial. Then how do you go from the immaterial ultimate to anything instantiated materially? And it's not, there's no causal relationship there. It would be invariant, therefore no change. There'd be no freedom.
Right.
And then if you would, it's like for people to tend to like laws of logic and say, all right, I want the laws of logic to be ultimate. I go, then there'd be no freedom there. And if they want freedom, then they have to have another transcendental that conflicts with their logic transcendental, and that'd be an issue there. And then they wouldn't jive. And you'd have a singular monad there, no diversity either. So it's not accounting for plurality there. But with the Trinity, we have equally ultimate unity and diversity within an ultimate personal context. We can dive deeper into that. I got kind of the basics down there. There's not that people's brain will melt or whatever, but given that view, account for communication, predication, stuff like that, communication, subject, predicate, where you have a personal subject, personal object, and a personal context. We're always dealing with that in all of our conceptual relationships and other relationships and stuff like that between two things, subject and object. That's within a context. It's your personal and impersonal, and only within the ontological Trinity and his sovereignty over creation. Everything stands in relationship to divine persons, and they stand in relationship to themselves. So there's no impersonal context within the being of God, nor in any impersonal context between him and his creation, given the mediatorship of Jesus Christ. So,
Sorry, just 1 second. I see somebody, Billy. I see that you raised your hand. We're not bringing anybody else up on stage. This is just a conversation between Matt and I. So yeah, I apologize. I should have made that more clear at the onset. But yeah, we're just the two of us chatting.
yeah.
Um, okay.
You have
That's
anything else
interesting.
on that before I move on to a different thing? We're just going to still stick on the worldview map there, and it's just going to be pretty much the pivot or the topic of the discussion there. Just we just
Hmm.
lay out the blueprint there, and I say, well, that's the structure of our argument here, and I can lay it out in formal logic and just show the structure of it there. But that's what we're doing in dialectic of a transcendental argument is comparing worldview systems there, circles of thought. And you want to deal with circularity and any objections you might have to that. I can ferret that out to show when you start with that creator-creature distinction, they're not on the same level of being. So we're not being viciously circular. We're not arguing on the same level of being with the facts we're investigating. We're talking about God, not merely our fat the universe. So if I was arguing on something in creation to something else in creation, you'd be like, hey, Matt, that's viciously circular. I go, you'd have every right to call me on that. God's not part of the creation. He's distinguished from it. He's eternal. It's finite. And he's on a different level of being. So if you're just talking about ultimate transcendental circularity, that's fine. But that's where we say it's a virtuous circle, natural transcendental that actually saves reasoning and accounts for reasoning.
You're the first person I've heard use the term virtuously circular since my conversation with Cy 10 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. That's what
Um,
Van Til meant by that. And
oh
that's,
yeah.
he answered that in 2 sentences. And, that's still one of the oldest canards out there that people use because they haven't studied Van Til at all. And I said, all you have to read is 2 sentences. He addressed it. He says, I'm just summing up and paraphrasing here, but I get the direct quote. The charge is made, we engage in circular reasoning. Now, if it be called circular reasoning when we hold it necessary to presuppose the existence of God, we're not ashamed of it because we're firmly convinced that anyone who leaves God out of account went in ruin. He's just saying, since we were showing we could say reasoning, I don't care what you call it, but it's a false charge. And then he lays out the next sentence. And it cannot fairly be called circular reasoning because we're not arguing the same level of facts with the facts we're investigating here. We're talking about God, who's not a part of the physical universe. He's the sovereign creator of the universe. So he's talking about if you were just arguing on the creaturely level and you pinpointed one thing and pinpointed another thing, and then two things were paying each other's debts in the argument, then it would be like, yeah, that's fallaciously circular, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm talking about God, not merely in our fact the universe. So it's failing to
Right.
start with the creator-creature distinction, or the creator-creation distinction. And people make that charge of circular reasoning in a fallacious sense, not a transcendental, ultimate, virtuous circle sense. Yeah.
That's
Does
cool.
that make sense?
So, um, I
Do you have any
understand why
objections
you
there?
think it. I understand why you think it makes sense. Um, so okay, I just want to kind of make a little note here. Oh, hey, Ton, how are you? Long time no chat, no speak. Hopefully, you and I can set up another conversation again soon. And welcome to everybody else who's tuned in. I saw Robin popped in for a second, and your friend Double D did as well. But they took off, but which is fine. Whatever. That's unfortunate, but they're going to do what they're going to do. Okay, eh, so you've mentioned Van Til a couple of times. I think you mentioned Greg Bonson's name as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you again, I'm not looking to apply labels to you, so I'd like to ask you:
Sure.
um, do you identify as a presuppositionalist?
Yep.
Okay.
Apologetically, yes. A transcendental or a presuppositional transcendentalist. You can flip the terms either way. A transcendental presuppositionalist. We're arguing from the transcendental ultimate to make intelligible our presuppositions. Otherwise, our proximate presuppositions would not be intelligible unless this ultimate transcendental existed.
Mm,
So that's what I was going to lay out too on the map. When you lay out those three boxes, those would be your approximate starting points, but they got to be grounded in your ultimate starting point.
right.
Otherwise,
So
you're
what's
assuming
interesting,
intelligibility and systematic relationship of them. So, go ahead.
right? So what's interesting about that, and this is a common thread that you'll find, and I've had this discussion with lots of different people.
Mm-hmm.
To someone like me, um, when someone answers that question in the affirmative that they're a presuppositionalist from an apologetic perspective, or whatever other terminology you want to use, what I hear is I started with my conclusion.
Well, we laid out our approximate starting points, but I said, what do we assume about those? That they're systematically related, that they're unified. I go, that's where we got to draw the lines there and distinguish between the proximate and the ultimates there. Because we want to have actual unity there among those things to speak intelligibly about the things in those categories. Therefore, in order to give a philosophical, theological account for it, yeah, the transcendental argument is showing you what you must necessarily start with to have intelligibility. We're talking about preconditions of intelligibility. Not that I just got six things here that are intelligible to me. I go, that's just taking it for granted. That's not giving a philosophical account for it. If people just want to go, you take things for granted, I take things for granted. We're done. That's not engaging in rigorous philosophical discourse or theological discourse. Now, even if they're not don't hold a theological perspective, they still hold to a worldview that's made up of presuppositions. So everyone is a presuppositionalist in that sense. Everyone has
Well, I told you what
presuppositions.
mine were, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not like one's a presuppositionalist and one's not. I go, everyone is a presuppositionalist. They just are not necessarily. Some people are, as Van Til said, I guess to use another Van Tillianism, intellectual loafers. I mean, they rely on their presuppositions day in, day out. They're just not epistemic self-conscious of them. Some are more aware than others. Some of them, they float up to the surface. They go, oh, that was there all this time, you know. Some rise sooner than others, and usually it takes a dialogue there to ferret them out of what they've been taking for granted this entire time. That's different than giving a rigorous philosophical account for those things and the intelligibility of those things. Otherwise, just saying, well, I just have a given. I go, okay, you probably got many givens, but you believe what? You can relate one to another. They're systematically cogent. There's unity amongst diversity here. They're not radically disjuncted, and you're a complete incoherent, you know, amorphous blob. You believe that, hey, I have intelligibility. I like using laws of logic. There's uniformity to nature, and I like science and studying God's creation and stuff like that. And may esteem some moral absolutes. I go, good. What unites the three things in those categories you just laid out there? That's why I just said we'll start laying out the blueprint here, and then say,
Sure.
okay, because I know initially when people started engaging presuppositionalists, when we started putting it out there, you say, well, you got your presuppositions, I got your I'll just assume the same presuppositions. Christian assumes uniformity, nature, laws of logic. I'll just say that's just my presupposition. I go, good, but that's not the argument. It's not just you have properly basic beliefs or axioms or presuppositions, whatever term. I think they're kind of synonymous, but there are a little
Oh yeah, I think that's
minutia
what I'm saying.
distinguishing between there because axioms are just stipulated; they're not proven. Presuppositions can be proven. Properly basic beliefs, that's just it sounds like foundationalism anyway. And it is just a recapitulation of foundationalism, which is just naive approach to epistemology. But still, they can lay out 7 bricks and say they're my foundation. I go, you believe they're united bricks, just we use a brick illustration there. Just individual thing. I want this thing. I want this thing. This thing. We build stuff up upon each one of those things. We have like multiple pillars, but you believe that they're related to each other. We got to account for a relationship. What grounds that? How's it actually intelligible? How do you avoid Bradley's regress? If you've ever heard of Bradley's regress,
Nope.
dealing with the problem of relations, things like that. So
But
we
I
can go
think
over that, but yeah.
yeah. So you said a few things. I think it's interesting. I think axiom. I think I agree with you. I think axiom is probably is probably less synonymous with the other two. I think axiom might be closer to brute fact.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't
Yeah.
spent a bunch of time thinking about this. I've probably spent more time thinking about philosophy in the past 10 minutes than I have in the past 2 years. Um, so, like, it's just, I mean, like, it's not, like, I am, like, my formal education is in social work,
Uh-huh.
and I'm a public servant, right?
It's all right.
So
Yep.
I don't spend a great deal of time thinking about philosophy. I
Yeah.
understand the utility of it,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm a layman for sure.
Yeah.
So, okay. So what's interesting, so you said a few interesting things there. So what's wrong with, so you, I'm trying to put together in a concise question.
All right.
So you have your grounding, right? To go back to what you said, this roadmap, right? Whatever you want to call it. So you have this roadmap, and your grounding is God,
The
right?
ontological trinity. Yes.
Right. Okay. But yeah, pardon. Yeah. Yeah. The ontological trinity, which we've said, for the purposes of this discussion, we'll just call God. Right. And again, I want to reiterate that I appreciate you having the courage of your convictions, unlike some people, and and actually sticking up for what you actually believe and not this vague deistic thing. Um.
Well, I can
So
address that. There's
no,
if someone's
it's fine.
claiming to be an atheist and they say, well, there's absolutely no God whatsoever. I go, that rule out all types. And then you'd have to, actually do that from the atheistic side. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
oh, well, I mean, that's a true attribute. God is a mind. God is absolute unity there. And it can say unipersonal and tripersonal, distinguishing between that because of well, I won't be over technical here, but just because of that exhaustive personal relationship I showed you there, there's no impersonal context within God. God speaks in plurality, very rare in scripture, with the us and our pronouns. Majority of the time in the Old Testament, he's speaking in singular personal pronouns as a singular
Yeah,
personal God.
the only one that
So
sticks out in my mind is when it says, "Let us make man in our image."
there's 2
That
pronouns
one
there.
is,
Yeah, let us
yeah,
make man in our image after our
yeah,
likeness. So it's used 3 times there.
yeah.
Us and our is used twice, or us is used once and ours is used twice. And then you have a Genesis 11 it's brought up again. Let us go down and confound their language. In Isaiah chapter 6, who will go for us? They say to Isaiah, and he says, "Send me, Lord." And then, then we see the full expression of that in between the Testaments, the incarnation of the Son, the outpouring of the Holy Spirit. But all I'm laying out there is, when people say, okay, God is ultimate, He is a mind. That's true. That's just 2 attributes we laid out. I can lay out more. I go, but just, you say some fundamental attributes of God. I can lay out 1, I can lay out 2, I can lay out, all 10, 11, 12, like I don't have a final list. I think it's like 15 maybe attributes we can parse out and also deal with its perfections of those attributes. But once again, it's merely you got to deal with not just one of them, but the whole kit and caboodle, but even just deal with 1 or 2 at the most.
And
You
no,
would
I
have
think
to do that from
overall,
the negative side.
yeah, I think overall, like I said, I think we're on the same page there, and I appreciate,
Yeah.
I appreciate the specificity rather than the vagueness. Okay, so
Mm.
you don't think, okay, you don't think that me saying reality is my ultimate is okay?
Lots of philosophical problems with that under scrutiny.
Sure,
This is why I
yeah,
laid
yeah.
out on paper, and I can say
Oh,
there's
yeah.
these
There
seven
might be a
philosophical
ton of
problems there.
philosophical problem. There might be a ton of philosophical problems with it, right? And that's fine, right? The reality is
But you couldn't
that,
speak about it though, if
well,
that was the
sure I can.
case.
We're talking
No,
about it right now, though, Matt.
no, man. I mean, you can articulate that.
Right.
I can understand a bad argument because it's intelligible to me, but that doesn't mean the argument is good. I just go that since you're taking out to that abstract formality, it's not accounting for how you can even predicate. Therefore, you would not, if that was true, speak about it. I'm saying, for sake of argument, if that were true under scrutiny, you would destroy intelligibility of speaking. There'd be no speaking intelligibly whatsoever. That's the point
Yeah,
of it.
but unfortunately, we're faced with the rather nasty reality that I can talk intelligibly, and I am speaking intelligibly, and even you, from your worldview, believe that I can speak intelligibly.
Yeah, it's on my ground. You asserting
Right.
your false worldview on my ground. Of course. That's how you can
So,
profess these, arguments and stuff like that. I go, as bad as they are, I just, I'm not using that to put you down or whatever. I'm just saying the nature of the argument is bad because these philosophical issues, it doesn't account for predication. But you're like, how can I even assert that? I go, you wouldn't be able to assert it on that worldview. You definitely assert it on my worldview. It's
well, what's
intelligible, yet it's
interesting,
false. You know
what's interesting is that from my worldview, with reality as my grounding, I don't have the same problem that you think I have from my worldview.
how?
Well,
How do
well,
you
because
assert that?
okay, so because for me, like reality is real is my starting point, right? Reality exists. Um,
That's very
I
tautological.
Yeah, it is. I accept that. I admit that. Sure, no problem. I don't care. From from my perspective, because reality is real, I can, and within reality, and I can speak like as an intelligent animal. I can speak, and I can speak to other intelligent animals and even some less intelligent animals, and carry on conversations and stuff like that. Like from it's interesting, and this is something that I've found interesting, and I don't want to turn this argumentative because I am enjoying the tenor of our discussion. So I've heard it said many times that in order for a non-believer to give a critique of the Christian worldview,
Mhm.
we have to be able to step inside to do that internal critique. And
Yes.
so well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Hmm.
In order for you to be able to critique my worldview, you would have to do the same thing. And if you step inside my worldview, where reality is real, you wouldn't have any of the problems you think I have when you're speaking from your worldview.
No, I'm not doing that strong critique. I'm not staying on my worldview critiquing yours. I'm jumping into yours saying that impersonal absolute isn't grounding necessary preconditions for even predication to even speak about it. So I'm actually
But
representing what you said was your ultimate. Just like when the Muslim throws out Allah, I go right for Allah. I critique him, showing Unitarianism doesn't ground any diversity whatsoever. Personally, there you got tons of issues over the Unitarian God. Same problem, same-ish problems with someone tying to an impersonal absolute. They want a personal absolute, Unitarian conception of God, not a triune nature of God. That's where the key is right there between the differences. Just showing the very lack they deviate from Christian theism, I already know where to hit them, but that's still accurately representing their side of the page. Just like yours, you don't want Allah, a personal absolute, Unitarian God, so some abstract formal principle, reality. In and of itself, it's just a concept. It's purely abstract. Doesn't stand in causal relations. It has no diversity. It's an absolute monad, impersonal
see, but
one at that.
but that's not how I view reality.
Hold on. Well, what I was going to ask you there, let me ask you this question. It's only a
Sure, yeah.
quick one here.
No, ask me
This
anything
will,
you want, man.
yeah,
No, like
just
I don't feel like I don't have a problem with the discussion at all so far.
yeah.
Ask me
I'm
anything you
throwing
want.
you bones here to chew on, and if you
Sure.
have me to answer, I want you to think about them and reflect
Hmm.
upon them. If you have me to
You've already
answer,
given me a couple things to think about.
yeah. So when you say reality is intelligible, so you believe all of reality is intelligible and can be understood in language? Do you believe that?
Um, all reality may not be intelligible to us.
Then why would you do philosophy at all, to any degree, if you didn't believe it was intelligible?
Well, because we can. I think we can only do philosophy, and I don't really do philosophy that much at all. But I think people that do philosophy can only like. So I don't know, like, and you'd have to answer this: is there such a thing as quantum philosophy?
Oh, you could have different subdivisions of classes and things like that. People would be
No,
quite,
no,
quite
no.
arbitrary when they
And
want to ferret it
I
out,
don't mean it to sound flippant, but like, is there
Yeah.
such a thing as quantum philosophy? I don't
Have you
think
just
there
thought about
is.
that? Well, there's, well, I mean, not to get over technical here, but even in different epistemological streams or whatever, like from an epistemological standpoint, from the Christian standpoint, given our, I'll just
Mhm.
use this as an illustration. I don't have to get into it, but just for an illustrative purposes here.
Sure.
Pre-Kant, you had the continental rationalist, British empiricist, okay, leading both to skepticism. The two main schools of thought pre-Kant collapsed in the skepticism. Kant tries to come in and save the day, doesn't really do his job. That's a separate issue. But as those epistemologies crumbled as epistemologies, they still had applicability as methods, rational deduction, empirical induction. You're constantly looking for the precondition of how they're able to do it to any degree. They couldn't do it holistically. So that's why he's looking for the transcendental of these methods. Therefore, there must be an epistemology that grounds these two different methods. So those two different methods would be like subsets within an epistemology, but your epistemology must ground those methods. It's antecedent to the methods being intelligible. But as epistemologies, those methods crumble. They can't be the whole grand poobah, okay? Because that's why Kant stepped in, because those things exalted as epistemologies crumbled. So you can have mitigated methods within an epistemology. That's not an issue. Christian can apply rational deduction, do logical syllogisms, and you can go out and study nature, do some induction. That's all right.
Are you
I account
suggesting
for
that
either
a
one.
non-believer can't do those things?
They're made in the image of God. Of course they can. Not in virtue of their worldview. That'd be under critique. That's why I say when pressed to the wall, you actually destroy the very things he wants to invoke. He wants to have induction. He wants to have rational deduction. Given your absolute, you're not grounding any of these things. In and of
Well,
itself,
that's
that concept is just, you got to think ontologically here. What is it in and of its essence? Not just thinking, if I just encapsulate it by this abstract concept, that should just do the job.
so it's interesting. So
Yeah.
I'm curious as to how this has me, like, with the things that you've said. It has me. One question keeps on popping into my head, and I haven't wanted to ask it because I haven't wanted to pull you off of what
No,
you've
it's all
been
right.
talking
Yeah,
about.
we'll get
But
back to it. Just throw it out
but
there.
what I can't the question that I can't get to out of my head is, how did you arrive at God?
Our position, everyone starts with them. They're created in his image from the very moment they're created. They don't become an image bearer at a particular age. When their 10th birthday rolled around, hey, guess what? You're an image bearer of God now. They're always an image bearer of God for the very moment they're created. Given the Christian view of man, he's made in God's image from the very moment he's created. So he's always an image bearer of God. He has innate knowledge of God. He has innate capacities from God's hand. He's living on borrowed capital. Okay, he didn't get this capital on his own. They're given gifts by God. Or people are given gifts by God. They have ontological, internal background knowledge there, capacities that even children exemplify at a very early age. Okay, even the capacity to learn and know what even pointing in objects is when you didn't teach them the pointing. He's got this habitual intelligibility right there. Innately pre-packaged in man, because the Christian view, man is not a tabula rasa. Okay, we don't hold the Locke's view, even though he's a Prussian Christian, but it held to an empirical standpoint there, and he came up with that term, blank slate. That's not the biblical Christian view of man. So that's taking into account what Romans 1 says, God made knowledge manifest in them, for God has shown it unto them. So we have internal knowledge, we have external knowledge, given all of general revelation. But they're part of that creation as well. So we do have that, if you want to steel man the Christian worldview of the ontological nature of man and biblical anthropology, you'd have to take that into account from our view.
Well, I think the best steel manning of your position is, if you're a presuppositionalist, it's just you just started with your conclusion and there you are.
No, we're
And this
starting
is
with the
where
whole worldview, Michael. So,
well, see,
yeah.
but the problem is that within your worldview is this ultimate foundation, and the ultimate foundation is the triune God, right?
But let me use that illustration. Yeah, we have the
If
foundation,
Right.
but
So
what we're
breaking it
saying
down to the
is,
lowest common denominator, The lowest common denominator, the quote unquote ultimate foundation, is the triune God.
And
Yes?
that's not just it. I'm saying we have the foundation, but we have the whole house built, Michael. That's what's
Okay.
being gauntleted
Right.
down. You're being confronted with an entire worldview, not, I got this one brick, then Michael, I lay on this other brick, and this other brick.
Oh
Eventually
no,
I
I
get this house. I
understand
go,
that.
we got the house holistically there. And yes, it's built upon the foundation. That's fine. I
Okay.
like that analogy.
Right.
It's good. But I'm
Right.
just saying it's not, first you got the foundation, then the brick, then a brick, then a brick, and it's a piecemeal thing. I go, it's wham, whole house right there, built, blueprint, landscape, internal furnishings right there, and yeah, God is the foundation for it. But it's a package deal. It's got to be viewed as a unit, not piecemealed.
See, that sounds like, and I understand, and this will sound more uncharitable than I mean it to sound. But it sounds like you're saying wham, whole house done, and done and done, to to avoid the stickiness of starting with presupposing your ultimate, right? And this is what I go back
Which
to.
everyone does. Which
Well,
everyone
okay,
does. I mean, if
right,
they're not going to be pressed to
exactly,
locational ultimacy, they'll tank at some point and say, that's as far as I go. I go, okay, you
right,
made that your
sure.
proximate ultimate. You're not pressed to the wall, but that's you're just saying it's your stopping point. As an antecedent precondition. That's all we're dealing with here. You're trying to prove your ultimate precondition.
I'm not trying
It's
to prove my
transcendent
ultimate
necessary.
precondition at all.
Well, you're not even, well, that's what your attempt to do is. If you're actually stepping on the field, let's use a field analogy, you're stepping on the field to play ball by stepping on the other side of the page. Because if I just lay out, Michael, and say, well, how do you account for this? I go, here it is, worldview, Christian worldview of things. Someone's like, yeah, I don't think that's true. Where are you standing when you deny it? It can't be possibly on my side of the page. You just denied it. So you must
No,
be
you're
standing
right.
somewhere else in other philosophical grounds. So then you're committed to a worldview then
You're
and
right.
sticking to
And
it.
Matt,
Otherwise, you walk off the field.
this is
Okay.
really interesting. This is
Yeah.
really interesting. And I think it explains, I think it gets to the heart. And again, I want to reiterate again how I'm appreciating the tenor of the conversation, because what we're doing is and you said this, maybe it was prophetic. You said this, I mean that only tongue in cheek. I'm not trying to be insulting. Um,
No, I know.
um, you said this earlier, that that we would try to talk about these things, but that we start out of these diametrically opposed positions, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm saying that that my starting point, brute fact, ultimate, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter what you want to call it, right? You pick the term
Mhm.
of reality, right? And within and that is what makes up the quote unquote foundation, or at least the foundation of my worldview, right?
Showing there's
And
problems with that, though. Yeah. But
right,
that you did assert that as your foundation, but it's still critiquable then.
oh,
And
oh
that's just
yeah,
some out there's critiques.
of course you can critique, and I don't have a problem with being critiqued, right?
Right. Hmm.
So, and then when we go over to your page, where or onto your
Side of the
side of
page.
the page, right?
Hmm.
Well, because
Yeah.
we had the line drawn down the middle, right, and we had the buckets, right?
Yeah.
We go over to your side of the page, and your side of the page, at the foundation, the starting point is God, right?
Hmm.
And what you say, and if my side is open to critique from your worldview, then
No, not from my
your
worldview. I'm
what's
not
that?
importing anything from my worldview into yours, and nor are you to import anything from yours into mine. You got to enter into my side and show
Right.
any internal
Okay.
conflict.
Can I step into your worldview as a non-believer
You're entering my worldview for sake of argument. I mean, you're not bringing your
with
baggage with you. Because when I critiqued your thing, I didn't throw a revelational epistemology into your worldview.
okay, so I can't bring my starting point with me?
No, because
Oh, really?
you're coming onto my side of the page. You're just actually steelman your opponent. There, I steelman you. I didn't have to bring anything from my worldview into yours.
That's
I just
interesting.
said, oh, you stand on your own. I said you asserted that ultimate. You wanted these proximate things here. I go, well, this issue doesn't, or this thing that you asserted there doesn't ground the intelligibility of these things, nor would it
Okay, that's
even be able
interesting.
to speak intelligibly about those things.
So then
So the
I'll
nature of the
step
ultimate.
into your worldview,
Hmm.
okay? And please explain to me how I get to where you are.
What, I just lay out the whole worldview there
Right.
in broad
But
strokes.
right, okay. So,
Yeah.
but what doesn't make sense to me, what doesn't make sense to me is starting with God exists. Like I understand like if I think about how you're looking at your worldview, it makes sense. And I've said this before to other people. If you if you start with God exists, everything makes sense. Every single solitary thing within your worldview makes perfect sense, is perfectly logical. It clears up all of the philosophical problems. It clears up, well, in fact, it clears up everything, right? If I start with your assumption or presupposition that the God exists, but I can't make, I need you to help me make sense of that in my brain, because when I even try to think
Okay.
about that,
All right.
what
Well,
what
you're
what my
thinking,
brain
okay,
what my brain says is, why are you starting with your conclusion?
we didn't. Because remember, I said a proof of a transcendental argument is proving what you should have started with. The starting point, the method, conclusions are all going to be interrelated with each other. Everyone's in a circle there, epistemically. It's not the same circle, though, because I showed a distinction between different levels of being. Even on your ultimate, I would say, well, that's on the. Otherwise, you're being univocal about it, that you're asserting reality on the same level of being with the facts you want to encompass.
So
And you'd be
it
univocal about
sounds
it, but
like
I'm
you
not being
just
univocal
said
about it.
it sounds like you just said the and correct me if I'm wrong again, because I'm not interested in misrepresenting you.
Okay.
It sounds like you said the logical. So do you think that the valid argument is evidence that the premises are true?
But the worldview has to account even how you have premises or syllogisms, dude. The worldview has to be
So,
incumbent. See, let me give you an illustration. Well,
oh no,
you
I
got that
get it.
map
I honestly,
in
Matt, I
vision,
get it.
right? Well, you have the
I
map.
do.
Well, you start with our approximates, right? And I said you believe they're systematically related. Therefore, you affirmed, yeah, there must be something that ultimately unifies. You understood the drawing the lines from each one of those categories. There's a plethora of things within those three buckets we laid out. There's three main
Lots
branches
of
of
stuff. Yeah.
philosophy. Yeah, and we drew
Hmm.
lines from each one and say, well, there would be your ground of ultimacy there. Where, on my view, those are two different levels of being. Approximate, ultimate starting points are not the same level of being. But you can say between that T chart, between the two worldviews, at the top, in between that line of antithesis, where that line of antithesis means we systematically don't agree on anything. Even if we use the same terms, laws of logic, we mean completely different things by them. I believe they reflect the thinking of God. You don't, even though we use the same term. But we can put that even as something in the center of the page. We'll call it X between the two worldviews. Now, X is anything that's intelligible that neither side doubts. They believe that's intelligible. I don't doubt it. I'm not going to squirm off of it, and I believe my side can ground it ultimately and account for it. Okay, it can even be the statement God does not exist. It can be logical syllogisms. It can be the statement God does not exist. That predicatory statement. I said I'll take it. My worldview can ground the intelligibility of that statement. Therefore, the very statement denying God's existence actually presupposes God's existence. Because on that worldview can ground that very statement of predication, account for the one, the many, to even assert it. A person can even enunciate that statement unless it's trying God existed. So we're shown there by they're both making a transcendental claim. Since we're dealing with an ultimate argument scheme here, there's no broader context you can go here to refute the skeptic. He's saying, here, give me an ultimate rational justification for rationality. I go, foundationalism can't do it. Pragmatism ain't going to do it. They both tank. They can only be refuted transcendentally. Therefore, you must be making a holistic worldview argument here and providing the grounds for intelligibility. So I'm making an assertion that my worldview, and I'm not saying, well, let's label it X. Let's use a little bit of symbolic logic here. Nothing too complicated. I'll label my side P, your Q. That's just a bivalent disjunct. P or Q, if you negate one of the disjuncts, the other disjunct is validated by logic. We only have two possibilities. One's negated, everyone's validated. It's a reductio absurdum on one of the disjuncts. So both are making a transcendental claim. Yeah, I'm saying P implies X. You're saying your Q, your worldview implies X because you believe you want these intelligible things. Okay, so how do you refute one of those that are making that claim? You have to show not X. Their worldview doesn't cash out the very X that they wanted. If you show not X, If Q implies X from your side and I show not X, guess what follows? Not Q. If you negate
So
the
what's
antecedent or the consequent, you've also negated its antecedent in modus tollens syllogism.
so it's really interesting. So when you're putting together any of your arguments, right? Because I don't think you've said anything that's quote unquote invalid.
No, it's not. It's logically valid.
No,
It's just how you formulate a transcendental argument.
that's I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
But what I'm not seeing, and maybe this is where we have to break it down a little bit further,
Go ahead.
is is do you agree that in order for a conclusion to follow from the premises, that the argument must be valid as well as sound?
Correct. Whereas the unsound premises, we had the two worldviews claiming a transcendental
Well,
necessity
for
for themselves,
for
right?
me, for me, it's God exists.
What's that? No, I
For
mean,
me,
it's
it's God
an indirect
exists.
argument here. And I laid out in pure formal logic, you can't disagree with the disjunctive syllogism unless every logician who ever used it is a complete idiot. No, they're a valid form of argumentation. You're laying out a bivalent structure for argument. We're only dealing with two interlocutors there. And we're dealing with, we can deal with the variations in classes and say, well, but what about the Muslim? He's not an atheist. So if you refute the atheist, well, how do you refute the Muslim? I go, how many times do I got to prove the same thing? I decimate him a different way, still from the same location of ultimate. As soon as you deviate from the ontological trinity, you're pretty much sunk. Because they're not grounding unity and diversity. They want to talk about all these other things, 20 different things, and they've been presupposing this entire time. Unity amongst diversity to even speak. I'll nail them around that point right from the very get-go. Okay, but that's because you deviated from the truth. Now, I'm showing the truth transcendentally. I'm not going to argue outside the Christian worldview to get you to the Christian worldview. I'm going to be standing upon it, showing reject it. Here's the implications of it. You're led to chaos,
So the
unintelligibility.
problem, okay, and I understand, and this
Mm-hmm.
is where I go back. This is where I go back to what I said before. From If I start with my presupposition, Matt, everything you said is perfectly logical. Everything you said makes sense. It takes care of all the problems. Then there's no more issues. But I have to go back to this again, and that is where I don't understand, and I'm asking your help to help
All
me
right.
understand this. Help me understand how assuming or presupposing that God exists is reasonable.
No, you start with the reality and then concluded reality, didn't you?
Okay, but reality is something like we know reality exists. Like
Well, you're
like
coming from your epistemology thinking, I only have concrete particulars here. You're coming from that empirical wing here. I mean, you're
do
not going to
you
be a strict
think, Matt, do
materialist,
you
but
think reality is real?
in that rationalistic sense, yeah. But I already said how
Well, good. Then we agree on that.
tautological that is. I mean, on Hegel's the real is the rational. You don't believe everything is resolving the absolute spirit at the end of the eschaton like Hegel did. When he said the real is the rational, he meant that as a law. He's applying the law, the is of identity there. He said the real is the rational. That reality is actually developing to absolute and ultimately resolving the absolute spirit. That diversity is on its way out. He was a monist when he actually got it all said and done. But that's when he says the real is the rational. I don't think you want to say that.
Yeah, but
I'm just saying you believe
do you think
reality is
reality is
intelligible.
irrational?
No, I
Right.
believe in an intelligible creator who created intelligible creation, which we can understand and have dominion over, given the creation mandate, of course. When you fail
Yeah.
multitudinous times on things, when you need a savior, you know, to only save us from eternal punishment, from
I
being
just don't start with that
sinners.
presupposition.
You did start with your ultimate. But I say, how do you prove your
I
ultimate to
didn't
me?
start with no, and
Well, if I
I'm
ask you the
sorry. I
question
think I
about
was unclear.
how do you prove your ultimate? You'd have to
How
be
do I
assuming your
prove
ultimate and show
reality?
us transcendental necessity, right?
We agree reality's real.
That's already part of
You
metaphysics.
agree
I
with
mean,
me.
you're asserting. Remember, the first bucket was metaphysics. That's just your view of reality. We already laid that out as a approximate starting point. I go, you want things in reality or in things in your metaphysics to correlate to things regarding your epistemology and ethics, right?
So, but the problem is, Matt, is that if we start like if you step into my worldview, right?
All you did was take your metaphysic, one thing in your metaphysic, which is just a category of reality, and said, I'll make that my ultimate then.
What's wrong with that?
I go, that's already your proximate here. You're already asserting something about your view of reality, and you just made it recapitulated to an abstract concept and say, well, if I just make this abstract concept and it encompasses all the distinct particulars within here, it's just dealing with an abstract set, which we've already been over before. I'm not going to, well, I mean, if you want to go over that again, I can show you, it still leads to
So what
those
if,
six,
what
seven
if,
philosophical critiques there. It's not going to ground intelligibility by making that maneuver. I mean, you can make the maneuver. I go, it's, you're susceptible to that, those seven things are going to slit your philosophical jugular there.
but you
It's bleeding.
agree. So if you step inside my worldview, right? Like even just for a second, like you come on and the water's fine. Um,
Yeah, it's bloody.
we agree. We agree that reality is real, right? You agree, like you agree with me that reality is real, don't you?
That I mean,
That
that is
reality
just
exists and
so
that it's a real
abstract,
thing.
tautological. It's not even funny. There's nothing concrete about that.
I'm asking you if you agree with me.
No, you just when you say real, you just mean it exists. I mean, you're
Yeah.
using existence as a
Do
predicate
you
there.
believe reality
Yeah,
exists?
of course I do.
Right.
But my
And that,
ultimate view of reality, I will do a dualistic metaphysic, but that has to be taken into account. I go, well, you're just dealing with the system of my worldview. I dealt with your system, but I go, you're not even grounding how you even have a system there, given that
okay, so
ultimate.
here's an interesting question. What if what if we don't so and this is and again what I keep getting stuck on, right?
All right,
Is you have the presupposition, right? You have the presupposition that if you apply, it
here.
solves all of your problems,
Well, here,
right?
Michael. We all started with the presuppositions, plural. Now we just show which one's ultimate. Okay. Or how
Okay,
there's
so
intelligibility
I
amongst the
told
various
you,
presuppositions we did start with. I go, okay, which one's the ultimate one? How do you
well,
have
I
any
already
unity
told
amongst
you
your
what my ultimate
presuppositions?
is.
I understood that, but I critiqued that. I know the maneuver of just pivoting to an abstract set, but your mind's not the ultimate
I
unifier.
Matt,
Which universal
this is
concept?
not a maneuver. It's not a maneuver.
I'm
This is
trying to
what
show you that it is.
it's what I
No,
believe.
what I was just trying to illustrate there, when we lay out the three main buckets, your view of reality, epistemology, and ethics. Those are three rectangles we laid out on each side of the page. I said,
Hmm.
draw lines from each one of those. How you have, there's if you have, you're not the three buckets there. Let's just say we just had two, just for illustration purposes. If you have two distinct things, what unifies them? It's got to be something. They don't
Reality.
unify. Hold on. Okay, you got the concept there, but here, hold on. I'll show you what the maneuver is here you're doing. When I
I'm
say, what unifies A and B there, you go, well, it can't be A unifying B or B unifying A. Something else is distinct from A and B that unifies them. That's where you say, oh, reality. That's okay. Now we have C, which unifies A and B, was C, an abstract concept called reality. In and of itself, it's just a concept. It's purely abstract, purely formal. And then when you make that the ultimate unifier to unify A and B, which A was, view of reality and all the things in there. That'd be your set of metaphysics or your individual marbles in that rectangle there. Okay. I go, what does that unify and how you have knowledge about these things? Okay. But how they relate conceptually, you want to say, I know about these things, but they exist ontologically. So you're making epistemological claims about ontology. We're talking about two different categories of things. I go, what unites the two categories?
so I
They don't
think
unify
so I
each
think what's
other.
interesting.
So there's a third distinct thing that is the underlying unity. Otherwise, you don't have coherence between category A and category B.
So I think I have a more clear understanding of
Okay.
why we're not of why we're not connecting.
Can I give
We
you
have our
another
piece of
example?
paper,
Okay. All right.
right, with a line drawn down the middle, right?
Yeah.
How many buckets are on your side?
Three rectangles. You have
Okay.
three on yours. We labeled them
No,
metaphysics,
hang on.
epistemology, and ethics.
I have one.
You don't, philosophically speaking.
No, reality speaking, and this is where and this is really interesting. But I think this will help us, if nothing else, if absolutely nothing else, this will help us both understand more clearly, even if we disagree, because we're like, I mean, who's kidding who? We're not going to come away from this thinking the other one is right. At least at this point, right? I am open. I want you to know that I'm open to being shown your
Mhm.
way, but I don't think that's necessarily going to happen in one conversation. And that's what I meant to say. I didn't mean to seem. I didn't mean if it.
No,
It
no, it's
probably
just for
sounded like I
clarification so
wasn't
you steelman
right.
us. Now, if you're just saying there, all you're doing is just it's the same thing I laid out anyway. When I said draw lines from each one of those rectangles so they meet at a point, all you're
Right,
doing
but
is
I
drawing a
only have
big
one.
circle around all three of those. I can do the same thing on my page. God envelops all those three things, but that's a different circle than those three rectangles.
Sure, yeah, right. But within so with my
It's illustrating the
bucket,
same point, but
so within my bucket is all of those things, right? Because for me, I've had it asked. I've had this question asked from me before. What is it that dictates what is and isn't possible? And for me, that's reality, right? Like, and I'll give you an example, right? I would like to be able to fly. I think that would be super. I don't think I've ever spoken to a person. Maybe if you were super afraid of heights, you wouldn't want to do this. But I've
yeah, I
never
don't like
spoken to
heights.
a person that wouldn't want to be able to fly, right? I think that would be cool. But what dictates whether or not I, as a Homo sapien, can fly? If we break it down to the lowest common denominator, it's reality. Reality dictates that I, as a Homo sapien, do not have the power of flight,
No, in and
right?
of itself, reality is just a concept. You're just saying a particular thing regarding capacity or whatever. There's distinct materials in particulars that by some magical way give you the ability to fly. That'd be because of antecedent causes there. But just enveloping all those particulars into an abstract set, that doesn't make the abstract set the definer and originator of it, because you just envelop them within a overarching concept. That's all you're doing. It's a pure
But
abstraction.
Matt,
It's like a clear envelope around material reality, and go, well, that's what dictates it. I go, it's just an abstract thing. It doesn't dictate anything.
within
Abstraction
my
cannot dictate.
worldview, it
How?
does.
You can
It
imagine that all you want, but that's not philosophically cogent. I mean, when you say dictate, that's a personal attribute. An abstraction doesn't dictate anything in and of its own essence.
okay. And
And you
you,
say it's
you
purely
can say
formal and abstract.
allows for,
The law of
right?
identity doesn't dictate anything. It's purely formal and abstract.
No, what I mean, so instead of saying what dictates what is and isn't possible, I can say what allows for things to happen or not happen. I can
No,
swap out those words. Why
no,
not?
because you're just using because you're viewing it like a how you give you an illustration of how you're representing it. It's like a bubble that envelops the world or the universe, and using that bubble as the abstract set of all the materialistic particulars within the bubble, or like all the marbles within the bubble. I'll distinguish between the bubble and the marbles within it. And you go, what dictates to the marbles are marbles? Well, this bubble around it. I go, no, the bubble doesn't do anything for the marbles. You're just saying all the marbles are the marbles within the bubble.
Mm,
That's it.
and I understand why you think that. Like I understand where you're coming from, and I understand why you see it that way. But that's not the way. And if that's the way I'm presenting it, I'm doing a horrible job because that's not how I mean to. But it really is just as simple. And like I said a few moments ago, if nothing else, it will give us a degree of clarity on where the other person is coming from. So and I told you before that I presuppose, like whether you want to call it presupposition, I don't care what you want
The
to
bubble.
call
You
it.
presuppose the bubble
Well,
around the marbles.
I think what you're doing there is maybe a little overly simplistic. If you want to
I'm
call
trying to
if you
illustrate
want
it.
to call it a bubble, then the bubble represents reality.
Well, that's what I
And
used there when you said you had one thing on your side. I go, oh, he's just enveloping those three categories under one big
yeah,
circle
and
that
when
just
you said that, I
overcomes
agreed
them.
with you.
Oh yeah, yeah. So that's just like me saying drawing lines from each one of those three categories, the three main branches of philosophy that make up a worldview that are symbiotically related. There's unity amongst them. There's a system. Therefore, we draw lines from each one of them to that ultimate unifier. You just throw the unifier on top of them there. I go, okay, that's just a different way of illustrating it. And I thought, okay, I'll use the bubble there because you're just using one big circle to encompass those, we'll just call them marbles now, those three marbles. And all
Sure,
you did
yeah.
was envelop those three marbles of those three main branches of philosophy under this bubble called abstract. It's just reality in and of itself. But I go, that's just an abstract set you want to envelop the marbles within and say that dictates what the marbles are. It doesn't dictate anything what the marbles are. You just envelop the marbles, which are what they are there anyway. We had to initiate those categories, and you have multitudinous things within those philosophical categories. We're just speaking them abstract here. But you believe in concrete things within those categories. As I said, there's your view of metaphysics. There's the same from the epistemic things, yet they're interrelated with each other. And we should be talking about truth here ethically as well. We should be telling the truth about these things, about our epistemic claims about ontology. You just envelop the whole thing just saying, I want to unify under this abstract term, reality. It doesn't dictate anything because pure abstraction doesn't dictate anything. It doesn't do diddly squat. It's impersonal. Doesn't stand in causal relations. Can't dictate anything because it's purely formal and abstract. And then it's immaterial in and of itself. So it's not grounding how you have any materiality stemming from it. And it's not causal and it's not producing its opposite ontology, any materiality of anything extended in space, because this thing is not extended in space. It's an abstract bubble. Just by analogy. I'm using bubble there in a non-physical sense there. You're just an abstract category as a box you want to develop these other boxes in. That's just, applying more abstract reality or abstract categories to more abstract categories, which you already did lay out, but we lay out something concrete from them. But it's just using an abstract term to envelop it, as you have some universal abstract categorization from some human finite mind. It can't be the conglomerate of all human finite minds, because even that's not universal. So you're dealing with your infinitude on one side and then dealing with absolute truth on the other. But all I can say is I can use the same illustration. God envelops all things within the worldview. I go, that's my position. But he's a concrete God, not an abstract God. I have particular concrete detail about him. And the concrete
So
worldview
what
he's
you're
laid
saying,
out, given his concrete revelation. So,
okay, so we can maybe this is a good time to move on to that God.
okay.
Like I'm convinced the Christian God doesn't exist.
Well, I had another issue there. I mean,
Okay.
I didn't want it to go by. Once you nailed that down, I think we
Sorry.
kind of got the schematics there. And you can lay out, go over the discussion, lay it all on paper, and go, oh, that's what he's bringing up there. If you're not tracking the mind, because sometimes people I'm not, down you or anything like that. I mean, it's laying out a lot of stuff there, and if people aren't tracking, it's better just to write
Well,
it
there's
down
lots
on
of
paper,
stuff. Yeah, there's lots of stuff
Yeah.
for sure. I have
But
made a
another
couple
point
of notes.
there. So not only you have that 3-point worldview philosophically, the three main branches of philosophy, and then the ultimate unity there, just to lay out the blueprint. Just laying
Hmm.
out the schematic there. We can put meat on the bones there, the actual concrete detail and stuff, and then doing the internal critique. Then that's when we do the dance, okay? But you got to lay out your cards first. Then we see which one has a royal flush.
Sorry, what do you mean
Then
by
we can,
dance?
well, we got to do the internal critique.
Okay.
You can't do the internal critique until people lay out their cards first. We got to show our hands. That's all we did first. We just laid out your side, my side.
Hmm.
Okay, now we got to do the internal critique, see which one has a royal flush. The grounds for intelligibility. When I showed that symbolic logic representation of the bivalent disjunct, reductio absurdum on the contrary, fine. But also another part of that, not only does that make up a worldview, but also your view of history. It has to account for your view of, it would be the Christian terms of creation, fall, redemption, consummation of all things. Okay?
Hmm.
Creation, God created all things, accounts for my existence, your existence, the world's existence, everything within it. He created all things, but man fell and sin. There's man's dignity there to start with. The man has inherent dignity as an image bearer of God. But he fell into sin. There's man's dilemma. Where's his redemption or resolution to that? Redemption in Jesus Christ. We're guilty sinners. We're all falling short of God's glory, but we trust in Jesus Christ for our salvation, who's God incarnate, was crucified, died, was buried, rose on the third day for his people's justification. We place our faith and trust in him. We're imputed with his righteousness, which we couldn't keep, but he did on our behalf. And we're granted righteousness in Christ. We are given eternal life and redemption through him. And then consummation of all things, and the eschaton, the completionist of all things. So that would be the flip side of that from the secular perspective. Same, still 4 points. Origins, why man has problems in this world, given your outlook of your ultimate. How's that accounting for why there's problems in the world? Does man have any inherent dignity from that starting point? Is man's view? Do we got completely different views of man? And what's the solution to man's problems? How's it solve man's problems from your worldview? And where are things going?
That's a good
So that
question.
can't be divorced from it. So I say there's a 3-point axis there, a 3-point worldview, and then a 4-point meta narrative that have to be both answered there, laid out more fully. That's why I did it in 2 stages here. That was just the first stage on the 3 branches, just so you understand the nature of a transcendental creator creation distinction, 2 different levels of being, at least from the Christian side, then same
Hmm.
schematic on the other side. just so they represent each other accurately and are making the same type of argument, same structure. Okay. And then no free givens there because you get to lay out your cards, but then we're saying you guys show systematic cogency, systematic accountability here, systematic grounding for unity amongst diversity of all these things, but also got to account for your view of history and development here and your view of man and, why there's issues here and what are the solutions to man's problems and things like that. So that's another stage there to where I go, even if you want to throw laws of logic there, I go, there's still critique there, but it's not answering why you have problems in this world. You make the laws of logic ultimate. So it's just got to go on from there. And if you want to dive in those categories, that'd be fine. It'll give us more stuff to dive into.
The only problem is that your foundation, the Christian God, doesn't exist.
You're saying on your side, just critiquing my side. No, that's how we started, Michael. You already disagree with my side. We already know that. That's how we
Well,
started.
yeah, but we have to like so. Unfortunately, what you can't, well, you can do, you can do whatever you want. Um, your The presupposition that the Christian God exists, unfortunately, doesn't mean the Christian God exists.
No, that's
And
proven via the internal critique and refutation of the contrary.
well, no,
It's proof by impossibility of the contrary.
unfortunately, it's not. That doesn't
Why
do it.
not?
Well, because okay, do you what's your final authority?
God and his revelatory acts.
Is that, and does that include the Bible?
Yes.
Oh,
Scripture is
okay.
part of special revelation, which is part of my epistemology, which is distinct from general revelation. So there's two aspects of revelation undergirded by revelational epistemology as a category encompassing both.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the problem is that um, the Bible, at least in my see, and this is where this is where I think, unfortunately, the some of the charity will end. The Bible is the best evidence that the Bible is all made up. Um, it the Bible says things that we know and can show in reality, my ultimate, aren't even possible.
How are you claiming knowledge on your side when you need ground
And
knowledge?
so the problem is, but the problem is, Matt, is that even you believe I can have knowledge, right? So I do have knowledge,
Oh, if
right?
you're going to steel man the Bible, I welcome steel man the Bible. You're going to
So,
do rigorous exegesis or
well, no, so
hermeneutics?
okay, it doesn't matter what we talk. So, do you believe that all scripture is God breathed and suitable for teaching and instruction?
2 Timothy 3:16 through 17. Amen.
Right. Um, do you think that the Bible is the inerrant word of the
Yes.
Creator of all things?
In the original documents, not in the
Right.
copies. So
Yeah.
I hold to the Chicago Statement of Biblical Inerrancy. Have you ever read that
Yeah.
document?
That's enough. That's
What do you
enough.
mean?
The Bible's wrong.
I mean, it disagrees with your presuppositions, therefore it's wrong. That's an external critique, bud.
No, no, it's wrong. It's wrong when we put it through the lens of reality, what we can actually
What
test and what we can
that's
actually show.
okay. So you brought the Bible into your worldview, saying this doesn't agree with my side, so I'm chucking it back over the other side. I go, you
Right.
brought it into your side. You didn't leave your
So
presuppositions on your side when you did an
so the
internal critique of
problem
my
is,
worldview. So
and this is where, like I
you're
said,
begging the question, Michael.
well,
And
I
that's what
mean,
you're doing when you engage in the external
no, I'm
critique.
not. I haven't
There's
made
2
an
points
argument,
to.
have I?
You said bunk. That's just you're standing on your side, standing judging me from afar. You didn't step on my worldview. You just took something from my worldview and said, "Well, my worldview that doesn't make sense. Here's my view
So
of
what I
reality. It disagrees with it." Like that's begging the
but what
question.
I've said
Assuming you got the right
before,
view of reality, and plus you're bringing something to my or bringing something into my worldview, which I spew out. I mean, you're just
so
bringing your view of reality and going, "Hey, this is your worldview disagrees with mine. This is why you're wrong." I go, "I didn't do that with yours. I didn't say, you know why you're just wrong." Because I hold this over on my side. I said, no, you're wrong even on your own terms. Your own ultimate didn't even cash out intelligibility, predication, diversity, personality. It didn't cash out materiality. I critiqued
Matt,
it on its own terms.
unfortunately your arguments aren't evidence.
An argument is evidence.
Really?
This is an ultimate argument. Can you show me one that actually goes higher than this, Michael?
Oh, that's shifting the burden of proof, friend. Um, so
No,
the
I'm not.
problem,
No, I'm just okay, Michael. I
yeah.
wasn't shifting anything there from your side. I said the structure of the argument. Can you go higher than it? Is this if
I
this one's sublevel for you? There must be some argument that goes higher than this. We should
No,
be
the problem
employing.
is, and this goes to what I asked you before. Like, does do you believe that the premises of an argument have to be sound in order for it to be for the premise,
You just
like
asked
for
me
the
a question about
conclusion to be
logic.
true?
Yes. Are you making the accusation that it's not? Then you need to show how it's unsound.
Right. So the Bible is the best
I didn't.
evidence.
That's not the premise. I said the Christian worldview is a transcendental for
Right.
X, or your
Okay.
worldview
If you want to
Q
break it down to
is
that
preconditioned.
denominator, if you want to break it down to the lowest common denominator being that, then
No,
like I said
I'm dealing.
before,
I'm not dealing
if
with the
you
lowest common. I said
presuppose,
it's the whole house is built, or the two systems on either side. We're dealing holistically with the two systems, not their minutia, but we're dealing as a package deal. That this worldview is necessary precondition for the intelligibility of this. We're not saying that this intelligibility or the worldview is deduced from X or induced from X, but that the worldview is necessary precondition for the intelligibility of X.
but
That's a
that's a problem
transcendental argument.
because it's wrong.
You have an argument. If you're going to
Well,
employ this argument, now you're just saying the argument's wrong. You didn't show any unsoundness or invalidity regarding the structure or soundness of premises. When I said either this worldview grounds this X or this one does, that's a bivalent disjunct. How do you
how
show
about
one of the disjuncts negated? You show the one doesn't cash out the very
if I
thing he
show
wants to
you an
have. Can
error?
you show me
How
I
about
don't
if I
cash out the X that I have?
what if I were
Okay,
to
or
show you an error in the Bible?
what? I said you want to bring up a copyist error, a textual variant. I have a critical test in the New
No,
Testament. I don't have a critical test of the
a factual error, something that we
verse.
know isn't true.
Strong claim.
Yeah,
In light of whose worldview?
in light of reality,
On your side, right?
something that no,
Whose view
something
of
that we
reality, Michael?
can
Mine or yours?
show that we can demonstrate is
We just
not
showed
true.
we're on two different sides of the page. We've got different views of reality, Michael. Whose view of reality? Yours or mine?
Thank you, thank you.
Which one?
This is where I said that at absolute minimum we would be able to understand why we don't agree with one another, right?
Dude,
Your
that's why the T junction exists there, and that line of antithesis is between us. I go, systematically, and I already stated this earlier, Michael. In principle, we don't agree on anything. Even if we
No,
use the
that's not
same
true. We agree
term,
on lots of
we
stuff.
really mean systematically different things by it. Even when I said the laws of logic, you don't believe they reflect the thinking of Yahweh. I do. Yeah, we both invoke the same term. You believe they're impersonal, abstract laws of logic. They don't they're not personal reflection of the triune God. I go, but
No,
we
of
both
course
speak
not,
the same
because that
term, but
God
we
doesn't
mean completely
exist.
different things by it. So when you say reality, I go, we already distinguished we get or have a line of antithesis. When you say reality, you mean mine and yours, Michael. Well, you got to pick one
No,
side.
I
If you
don't.
pick yours being arbitrary and do an external critique,
I
that's
mean
fallacious.
reality. What we actually can know and can
We
show
do not
are the
agree on
true case.
reality. I hold to a dualistic view, creator creation distinction. You do not view that regarding reality.
Do you have the capacity to demonstrate the creator?
Don't you automatically disagree with me regarding reality from the get go, Michael? Is that true?
So, unfortunately,
So aren't you just saying, well, you're automatically wrong, Matt, because I don't hold that dualistic metaphysic. Therefore, you're
no.
wrong because I
In
hold to this
fact,
view of reality.
you have the capacity. You have the capacity to demonstrate that I'm wrong.
That's why I laid out the structure of this argument. And you could go no higher than this. You got to deal with what I laid out. We're dealing with
Do you
comparing
have
the
the
worldview
capacity?
systems here.
Do you have the capacity to demonstrate that the thing you believe is real is actually real?
Do you believe in transcendental demonstration? Is that a demonstration criterion for you regarding transcendental arguments that are high enough to, when you do that, you have different types of proof, Mike. We got pragmatic proof, empirical proof, rationalistic proof, transcendental proof. Those
Unfortunately,
only
in this
those,
way,
those bottom three that I
I'm
laid
more
out
of an
first.
empiricist.
Okay, the bottom three that I laid out, I laid them out in order like that, going from the bottom up. Those other three at the bottom do not even make sense unless they're within a transcendental framework, a worldview framework. Because I said the worldview transcendentally has to account for rational deduction or empirical induction. You don't get to have a given. I just have empirical induction. I don't have to account for it. I go, your worldview better account for that and
It
account for
does within
unity amongst
reality.
diversity that you need to do even empirical induction with. But we heard no grounding for that whatsoever other than some abstract term, which fails to do the job.
So what you're telling me is that because I don't have the capacity to show you that your unfounded assertions are right by default?
What do you mean are unfounded?
Okay,
According to what standards,
the
Michael?
Christian God doesn't exist. Okay,
That's a claim. That's
in
already
this
on your
way,
side of the page.
in
Because I
this
didn't
way,
put them on
I
your
am
side of the page, Michael. I didn't put them on your side of the page, did
I am
I?
an empiricist. So, if like, would it be
I'll grant you that.
your desire or hope to bring me to your side?
No, you have to have a complete paradigm shift. That means you have to give up your worldview and repent. That's what repentance is, a change of mind. It's not, I got to tweak some things within my worldview. I go, you're completely, just be, you just have to complete crap can, man. Can't,
But that's
you
not.
know, just,
But Matt, you didn't answer my question. Is it your desire for me to be Christian?
oh, it's my hope, but I can't convert you. See, well, you're confusing proof with persuasion. I go, proof isn't persuasion. I can sit back and go, Michael, you can prove to me, say, prove to me 2 plus 2 equals 4, Michael. You're like, here, lay out this, Bertrand Russell, Whitehead, and mathematical Principia, and
What
stuff like
if I
that.
could
Matt,
prove to
here,
you that?
hold on,
What if
hold
I
on,
could
hold
prove
on,
to you the
hold on,
Bible's wrong?
hold on. Just saying. You can say, Matt, I can prove it to you 2 plus 2 equals 4. I sit back and go, I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. Oh, here's another alternative, Matt. Here, look at these things here. And you keep bringing me stuff, and I go, I'm not convinced by that, Michael. It's just I'm not convinced by it. You may say you're submitting me proof, but I'm just not convinced by it. I go, does that mean you didn't submit proof to me, Michael? Proof is not persuasion. Proof is not convincing. You're assuming if someone has proof that automatically convinces you. I go, not all arguments are convincing to people. That doesn't mean you didn't lay out logical proof. There's no critique
How
of
would you
how this is
define
not
proof?
logical or irrational. You
How
just don't
would
know
you
what to
define
do with
proof,
it by
Matt?
saying, okay, if I just say I'm not convinced, that should get me out of the jam. I go, you're confusing proof with persuasion. People could be staring objective proof in their face, and you know this happens in reality, Michael. You're like, how did that person not see this? And you see it. I'm like, well, proof didn't convince them, did it?
Can you define proof for me?
I just laid out transcendental proof. Do I need to lay it out again? You kind of missed
Well,
that.
okay. So I think we're just using different definitions.
Transcendental, I can use another
No,
proximate
no,
example. It's not an ultimate
proof,
example. Well, the person
proof.
who
How
argues
would you
against the laws of
define the
logic
word?
has
How
the
would you
person
define the word proof?
has to be the case, necessarily be the case. So the one arguing against the laws of logic has to presuppose the laws of logic in order to argue against them. They're presupposing their transcendental necessity. Because the
So we're
person
using. So
arguing
the problem
against
is
it
we're
has to
using
presuppose the
different
very thing he wants
definitions.
to deny. No, that's just the
Yeah.
nature of a transcendental argument. I'm just showing the structure of it, which is
No,
different than a rational deductive argument or modus ponens or some inductive strong or weak argument.
I
The
asked
point
you
is, how can you do
to
either one of those
define proof.
operations at all?
I, I,
Yeah.
I, and we
Oh,
don't
okay.
share the same definition of proof.
Well, I can lay out
So
the
that's a problem.
non-bivalent structure of it. In order for X to be the case, Y must be the case. Because since X is the case, Y must necessarily be the case because Y is necessary precondition for X. That's the structure of a transcendental argument. And then you say, oh, how do you prove that? I go, assume the opposite of what you're trying to prove. So
So
it needs to assert the very thing that it wants to negate to even make the statement arguing against it. Shown as transcendental necessity. That's the very nature of a transcendental argument, Michael. Showing the very my opponent has assumed the very thing he wants to deny to make an argument against me.
so the
Has
way I
presupposed
define
God in order
proof.
to argue against God. If you really want to break it down to brass tacks there in simplistic language.
So the way I define proof is a preponderance of evidence.
What type of evidence? Strictly empirical?
For me, when it comes to this stuff, I am an empiricist. Yes.
Empiricist is self-refuting. Hume already drove that in the ground, Michael. You can't be a strict
So
empiricist anymore since Hume. No one is.
what I said was, in this case.
Then you're just on your Humean critique. There's tons of things you have to deny then.
So
Because you destroyed both the subjective knowledge and objective knowledge just like Hume did. You're in utter skepticism. Unless you have an answer for Hume.
so what I'm going to go back to is what I said before. Okay. When it comes to this, when someone proposes something to me, okay, I look at the claim. Okay. Um, and there's all kinds of different claims, right? There's ones that are fairly mundane. Like I have a dog, right? You have a dog, right? Now we were talking about this when we first got started, and you had said, I'd said, is this, oh yeah, this is really my dog.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't have to believe you, right? But I know that dogs
No.
exist,
Yeah.
right? I know that dogs exist, and that's a mundane claim, right?
It's a
Now, if I
particular,
was to tell
particular material object.
if I was to tell you that, like, I also have a dog, right?
Hmm?
And I could give you, I could, get your contact information, and I could email you pictures. I could email you pictures of me with the dog, so that you'd see that, because the avatar, my clubhouse avatar is really me.
Mm-hmm.
And I could say, if you look at my shirt that says "Kiss My Balls" and there's snakes on there, they're ball pythons. I also keep ball pythons. I have four of them. I'm
Cool.
standing in a room with four of them right now.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, it's okay. I know snakes exist, and that's a little bit more of a weird pet, right? But okay, I accept that you have ball pythons. Okay, it's not my cup of tea, but whatever. You have snakes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I said that I had a lion, right? Well, well, I know lions exist, right? But it's a lot harder to keep a lion, and there's special permits or laws. And actually, I don't actually think in Canada you can keep a wild animal like that in a home. Um, and if I kept on escalating the things to things that are even more and more unlikely, then the claims become less mundane, and it's the the threshold for me accepting that claim is going to become higher and higher and higher, right? And so when we get to your claim, like your assertion that that God exists and the Bible is true and all these other things, in this aspect, I am an empiricist, and you're going to have to, in order for me to accept your claim, you're going to have to show me something. And
Michael,
and that's just the reality of the situation.
I got
And
you, but I'm showing you that's an external critique. That you're saying that worldview on the other side of the page has to bend the knee and come into my worldview on my empirical grounds. Like, dude, it's an external critique. You just want the other worldview to capitulate to your side of the page. That's not the argument here. But that's
so
what you're
you don't
thwarting here by going, it's not meeting my side of the page, therefore it's false. I go, wait, your side of the page doesn't stand up on its own. We did an internal critique of it. It has no grounds to judge anything. Therefore, it doesn't the other worldview on the other side of the page doesn't have to capitulate to your worldview
but the
to be
problem
true.
is that my worldview from where I'm standing stands up just fine. It's
No,
only
I already
from
critiqued
your
it.
side that it doesn't stand up.
Mike, okay. You can say it
Reality's
stood, but it
fine
already get
for me.
decimated. Well,
Reality's
you can walk
fine
through
for
that.
me.
We did decimate that.
Well,
And
the
it only
problem
took a few
is
seconds to do it when under
the
internal
the,
critique there. But now
the
you're
problem
saying,
is you,
look,
you didn't, and we both
Michael,
agree that reality's real.
Michael, do you know what the square of opposition is in logic?
No,
Have
I
you ever
don't.
heard of it? Okay. Just
I don't
imagine a
think so.
square. Or you got a piece of paper in front of you? We can go over an illustration
I
here. It'll
don't.
be
I'm
really
walking
quick.
around. I'm walking
Okay.
around right now.
Just imagine a square in your mind. All right. Got a
Sure.
square? All right.
Mhm.
We're going to draw that line down the middle of that sucker again. We're showing the two sides of the square.
Sure.
And I'm going to use the corners here for representation. So in the upper left-hand corner and lower left-hand corner, we put the Christian view, okay, of transcendence and immanence. Okay? In the
Okay.
top left-hand corner, Christian view of transcendence. Bottom left-hand corner, Christian view of immanence. On the right-hand side of the square, top corner, top right-hand corner, the non-believer, you for instance, non-believer, view of transcendence. On the bottom right-hand corner, there's non-Christian view of immanence. Okay? Now,
Hmm.
got the map laid out there. That's just a square of opposition. We'll show how there's opposition here and the opposing diagonal corners. Okay? So when I assert the transcendent God is Lord and has entered into his own creation, give us concrete revelation about himself, because he is Lord, he can do that. Now you're free to disagree with it. I'm just saying steel man my side of the page. Okay? But when I'm asserting that corner, what are you viewing in? Your immanent realm. And you're asserting your empiricist immanence. Okay? Now,
Hmm.
got the map laid out there. That's just a square of opposition. We'll show how there's opposition here and the opposing diagonal corners. Okay? So when I assert the transcendent God is Lord and has entered into his own creation, give us concrete revelation about himself, because he is Lord, he can do that. Now you're free to disagree with it. I'm just saying steel man my side of the page. Okay? But when I'm asserting that corner, what are you viewing in? Your immanent realm. And you're asserting your empiricist rational scheme here. on your side, judging my opposite corner. Well, if you're going to show me him, it's got to be empirical. He's got to be material. He's got to condescend down to my level. I go, he has done so to our immanent realm. And I go down to my bottom left-hand circle. He has revealed himself in all of creation and scripture and the incarnation of the Son, the outpouring of the Holy Spirit. You're reviewing that from your opposite corner, your view of transcendence. Now, if your rational empirical scheme doesn't go all the way up to the top of transcendence, you're not filling up your side of the square, then your rational scheme is tanking out there. It's not encompassing everything that's being encompassed. Yet you're going to go, well, there's other things that transcend us. I mean, who can really know? Did you say you got this revelation? Hey, all these other people assert their revelation. How do I know what's really true here? These other things are very mystical to me and transcend because my rational scheme of empiricism doesn't encompass everything. So your rational scheme is tanking, and it just becomes a preformed Procrustean bed, and someone can assert some other arbitrary Procrustean bed. No one's the wiser, so it carries no authority. Or in the sense you got this non-encompassing, everything's being encompassed on the transcendent level, it doesn't fill up your side of the square to the top and account for everything, to even do philosophy at all. You believe the world's rationally intelligible. If it's just shrouded in mystery, then you've got a little bit of irrationalism into your scheme. Now you got to adopt the scheme itself. So it carries no authority either way, Michael, on your side. But you're using those different corners to judge whatever the Christians are asserting from their side. The square of opposition there, the opposite diagonals there. When I assert top left corner, you're asserting your bottom right. Well, he's got to be empirical. You got to show me this God, I say he has revealed himself, okay? And he's come right into into his own creation, revealed himself clearly in all creation, made man in his image. Here's all ontology of man, and then that's asserted to your skeptical thing, going, well, my rational scheme doesn't encompass everything. I mean, who can really know? Then on the skeptical wing of your own side there. Because
Oh,
your
but
worldview doesn't encompass everything that's being
unfortunately,
encompassed.
that's not the skeptical side of things. That's not my skeptical side of things, right? Like I am skeptical about some things, but like
No,
we
if you
know
don't have explanatory power, you're going to say, well, I can't explain that. It's very mysterious to me. Then you're tanking the mysticism. Mystery.
God has no explanatory power whatsoever.
I was just, okay, for the sake of just me laying out the illustration before you go off to other grounds, you understood what I was illustrating there, right?
I
And you have
understood
to
what
answer the
you're illustrating.
illustration. Okay, do you have a critique of that? Was there anything inaccurate that I stated?
Yes.
Is your worldview going to encompass everything that needs to be encompassed, not just from an abstract term? By reality, I go, you're not explaining anything within that in totality, okay? Because you'd have to have omniscience to explain all that. But your
So
rational
what's
scheme
wrong
isn't
with
filling all the way up to the brim, is it?
okay, so I'll tell you, I'll try to answer both your questions, and then I'll follow it up with a question of my own. So the first question is, yes, there's a problem with what you said, and
Ah,
that is that the Christian God exists, because it doesn't. And then the
I
other
just was
thing
laying
is
out the two positions, Michael. I just laying out the map
it
for sake
doesn't
of argument.
but the problem is that baked into your map is your presupposition.
I wasn't making it as an argument, Michael. I
It
just
doesn't.
said we're comparing the two worldviews. We already know you disagree with it. That's what puts you on the other side of the square, Michael. We
I
know that.
understand. I
So
understand.
just regurgitating the same thing is not a refutation of the illustration. You're just saying, I don't like you laid out your card on that side. I go, I knew that from the very start. You don't like it, but I still man your
It's got
side.
nothing to do with me
I didn't
liking it.
say, you know what, I don't like your side, Michael. We don't need to represent your square accurately or your side of the square. It's for illustration purposes to show how you're viewing my assertion in light of what you're presupposing. Your
But
view, your
that's
rational
actually really
scheme.
interesting,
But
Matt.
I'm showing your
Do you
rational
think
scheme tanks, Michael. Because
do
you
you
got
think
your
that
rational
I
scheme, if it doesn't go all the way to the upper level of transcendence on your empirical scheme, then you have a divide on your side of the square. It only goes halfway up. Now, that's your rational scheme there. The other side is irrationalism.
and because
So
of
you have
that the
this,
Christian God exists?
I'm showing you on your own side, you have this rational, irrational dialectic going on where you want to assert yourself as autonomous, but your rational scheme doesn't encompass everything. So then it shows you that you're not autonomous. So you're asserting a yes and no in dialectical tension. You can't resolve it. The Christian is not asserting he's autonomous. That God is Lord, and we're in the middle there. We're not asserting ourselves as autonomous. We bow the knee to the Lord, and in so much as He's revealed it, we can have rationality there. The things go beyond us are beyond our capacity. But we're not asserting ourselves as autonomous like the empiricist is. You want to say your mind's self-sufficient. Well, let's look at your rational scheme, Mr. Self-Sufficiency. Does it do its job? You go, no. It does. I got to say there is absolute truth, but I can't explain it. It's very mysterious to me. I go, then you're tanking the irrationalism. You got this back and forth, tug of war. They're ripping apart of there. Because now you got to be rational and assert something about the world. Now you're dealing with your own finitude, but then dealing with absolute truth on the other. You got an oil and water problem here. You're trying to bring together, and you flip flop between back and forth with it. Okay, but your rational
I
scheme ain't
haven't
doing the
flip flopped at
job.
all. But it's funny. I had a question that I wanted to ask you because you said something interesting that poked my curiosity.
Okay.
When you said something, like, "Oh, I don't like that." Do you think that I'm an atheist because I don't like your God?
No, I didn't say God exists. I said, for sake of argument, here's how I'm viewing the Christian view of transcendence, the Christian view of immanence. You just don't like he's
So,
asserted on that side. I'm not saying I proved God
oh, okay,
exists. I'm
okay,
showing
okay.
you.
I misunderstood. I
This is
misunderstood.
a
I apologize.
representation because you said, well, look, this worldview, this God, he has to bow the knee to me, to my empiricism. That's just showing that when I
I actually
assert that
didn't
upper
say that,
left-hand
Matt. You
corner,
said that.
you're viewing it in view of your lower right. You said, no, he's got to be empirical. This is my epistemology. This is my rational scheme, and he must bow the knee to it. I go, that's how you're viewing my view of transcendence from your immanent empirical realm or immanent realm, your rational scheme. That's why I use the square of opposition to illustrate the point. When I assert one, you're asserting the opposite corner and critiquing me on it, going, "Hey, if you're going to show me this guy, he's got to fit my empirical little Procrustean bed." I go, "If I show your empirical Procrustean bed destroys itself, that's no valid critique of anything or standard, since empiricism is self-refuting. The claim that all knowledge is derived via sense experience is not known through sense experience, Michael. It's immediately self-refuting."
So it's really interesting. You make some interesting arguments, a couple of which have given me something to think about. I
Sure.
disagree
Mm-hmm.
with, like, the only way we interpret the world is through our senses. So the only way that you perceive the revelation that you think you have is through your senses,
Oh, Helen
right?
Keller had two senses missing.
So yeah, but she still
She couldn't
interpreted the
interpret.
world through her senses.
Well, if someone had no sense experience, she couldn't interpret anything.
Well, if you're interpreting the world through something other than your senses, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, here's the issue. If you want to have, you're going to take the locking position, the mind's just a tabula rasa, has no innate knowledge. You're denying the innate ideas of the rationalists, right?
Oh, I didn't say that.
Okay, so you're going to be on Hume's side, on Locke, Berkeley, and Hume, that said they're the British empiricists who said there are no innate ideas. We disagree with the continental rationalists. We disagree with Descartes, Spinoza, and Leibniz. The continental rationalists believe there are innate ideas, clear, distinct, innate ideas.
I think
So
we
how do you
haven't.
justify those?
I think we
Oh,
haven't.
yeah, you're claiming that? Then you're not a strict empiricist then. Because a strict empiricist denies the innate ideas.
I didn't say, Matt. I didn't say that I was a strict empiricist. I said when it comes to this, I am.
You're an empiricist. I go, well, you didn't qualify that. I said, well, the
Oh no,
rationalists
I
would say
did.
there's some
And if
empirical
if I wasn't
methodology,
clear,
but
I
they're not
apologize.
empiricists. They're rationalists.
If so, what I had
The
said
rationalists
was,
didn't deny any empirical investigation whatsoever. They're just not asserting that as a grand poobah. But you never said, well, I affirm some rational deduction, stuff like that. You just said empiricist. I go, okay, didn't put any qualifier on it. Must be a human.
if that's what I said,
Yeah.
if that is what I said, I apologize, and I
Okay.
didn't. Then I misspoke, because what I meant, and I'm pretty sure if we go back and listen to it, that I did say what I meant to say. But what I had meant to say, and perhaps it was unclear, is that I'm an empiricist when it comes to this. So if you want me
Right.
to hang on, let me finish, man.
Okay.
If you want me to accept the claim that the Christian God exists, then you're going to have to be able to demonstrate that to me.
No, I don't. I
Now,
do. If I invalidate that standard as a standard under internal critique, then you have no standard at all to throw my way and
well,
say
the
the
problem
Christian
the
God must
problem
bow the
is
knee to my empiricism, because you're throwing that as the sole critique. That's why I said when you're asserting that from your corner, you didn't say any rational deduction or anything there. It's just empirical. I go, that's what you're using to judge the triune God. He must be material. He must fit my preformed Procrustean empirical bed. But if I show
he
that,
doesn't have to be material.
what do you mean by empiricism, Michael?
So does the
Empirical, something that
Christian
extended in
God have
space.
the
He's
capacity?
incorporeal.
Does the Christian God have the capacity to manifest in reality?
He can perform miracle stuff. You're talking about his very nature is incorporeal. He can take on
Okay.
human form
Okay. So
in
so he does
pre-incarnate
have the
form.
capa does the Christian God have the capacity? So it's interesting because, like, the
He's
the
spirit,
Bible
Michael. I'm
gives
John
us
4.
the Bible gives us a methodology for testing, right? The Bible says,
Different things.
Well, hang on. One of the things the Bible says is, anything that, anything you ask for in prayer will be given. Believe you've received it and it will be yours. The Bible also says that, if there's anything you ask for, I'll do it in my Father's name, so the
To the
Father will be
believer and
glorified through the
according to the
Son.
will of God for God's purposes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So, but then unfortunately, at least from my perspective, is it also squishes that because the Bible also says you can't put the Lord your God to the test. So it gives you a methodology for testing that would satisfy me, right? And unfortunately, your logical arguments don't convince me,
I never said they were to convince you, Michael. We already been over this. Proof is
especially
different
in
than
the face
persuasion.
of
Michael.
especially in the
Remember,
face of
my job is not to convince you. I'm just going to be faithful in presenting to you objective proof. Now, whether you accept objective proof or not is not my problem. That's
But the
yours.
problem is that it's not objective proof.
You didn't invalidate how it wasn't. Other than you're claiming only empirical proof is now objective to you.
So I
But
think I
if I
think the
show
best
that
way
that
for me to
standard
do this, I think the
ignores,
best way for me to do this is for me to give you one of the pieces of evidence that proves that the Bible's wrong.
dude, you don't get to assert these things when you haven't accounted for even the intelligibility of evidence from your worldview. It destroys
But
the very
you
concept of
you agree
evidence.
that but I do because
You're not like
reality
granted a given, Michael. I can do induction.
reality
I can do
grants me the
empirical induction. I
capacity.
go, your worldview didn't even ground it yet, Michael.
It does as far as
It's
I'm
not your
concerned.
given, dude. So you keep invoking all these intelligible things, going, I'll use the intelligible things to critique God. I go, you didn't even account for the intelligible things, Michael. You're stealing from my worldview. Again,
Well, no, I'm not. I mean, I understand that you think that I
you
am,
didn't
but I'm
cash it out
not.
on your side. Where'd you cash out intelligibility on your side? We're giving your abstract notion of reality as ultimate.
Reality grants me intelligibility.
Sure,
Why not?
reality is that it's just that balloon shell around all the concrete particulars
Why
that you
can't
believe are
why
intelligible.
can't
I
that
go, but
why
how's
can't
the
that be the case?
abstract bubble just cashing out intelligibility?
Why can't that
Um,
be the case, Matt?
I already critiqued that. Man, okay, you weren't taking notes. Okay, but you go over this dialogue again. But I say the impersonal absolute there is not granting, you're not accounting for personality, you're not accounting for diversity.
I
So
disagree with
that's
that.
purely formal and abstract. You're not giving a valid rebuttal to it. You're saying I disagree with that. I go, it's
Yeah,
immaterial, doesn't stand in causal relations. It's purely abstract, formal. It's a concept. It's a complete monad. It's just a one. There's no diversity, so it's not accounting for plurality. It's immaterial, therefore it's not accounting for anything extended in space. It doesn't stand in causal relations of things. So I brought up the 6, 7 critiques there of everything at times when you bring up a formal impersonal absolute as or some absolute principle or category or class, which is just an empty shell that you're just asserting to encompass. You want to fill the shell in with. I go, you're just asserting the shell, Michael, and you want the shell to be intelligible. It's just purely abstract, formal, doesn't stand in causal relations. You're not deriving anything from it, any opposite ontology from it. It's permanent, doesn't allow for change or variance. There's no freedom. You have
hang on.
scores of
Whoa,
problems here, dude.
what are you talking about? Reality doesn't allow for change.
Dude, the concept in and of itself. You're not dealing with the ontology of the
I'm not talking
concept.
about the concept. We
Yes,
agree
you are,
reality is
because you're
real.
using that abstract concept as the shell, as the overarching shell, the bubble to encapsulate all the little materials and particulars you want to have in your world, and say I'm conglomerating all of them into this shell.
But didn't we
You're just
agree
talking
that
about the shell,
reality is
Michael. That's
real?
the outermost layer, right?
The no, it's not just a layer. Like reality. So, and I'm
That's what I'm
having a
trying to get
hard
you to
time.
get here, man, because you're like
No,
you're
I'm
being idealistic here. Now, an idealist here, either you're interpreting a part and line of the whole, or a whole line of its parts. Which direction you want to go? Because either way, you're going to tank the mysticism.
so the problem is that we we are fundamentally disagreeing, which is not surprising, on our starting points.
You
You
showing me the
you
problems with it
oh, unfortunately,
on
I
your
don't I
side.
don't see I don't see the same problems that
Give
you
me
do.
well, when you hit that outermost ring, you know what a bullseye is, or a target, right? So if
Hmm.
that's a particular, let's say you just have a bunch of bullseyes there, and then you got the outermost ring outside of that. Now I go, how do you explain that ring, Michael? I go, one ring above that. How do you explain that ring, Michael? And you hit the broadest scope there, to where you get to the point, you go, well, I've hit the outermost ring, Matt. I go, how do you explain that ring, Michael? You go, I can't. It's not explainable because I got to lay another ring outside of a much broader context. You hit your outermost bubble, it's unexplainable,
So
right?
here's okay. How do
You're
I?
taking that approach,
Okay,
but I go take the
I'm
reverse. You take
not
a whole,
though.
break it down into its
I'm.
parts. You get to the bullseye there. I go, your method of breaking it down, breaking it down, breaking it down. It's an absolute simple. You can't explain it because in
But
order to
that's not what I'm.
break it down or explain it, you got to break it down, chop it up, slice it up. Which
So
direction you going,
okay.
Michael?
How do I define reality?
You're using an abstract term. I've been trying to show you between that which is purely formal and abstract, all
I'm
right, pure
asking
formal and abstract
you.
versus that which is concrete. Your
I'm
notion of
asking you to
reality,
tell me how I define reality.
you want to use it as a shell to encapsulate all the marbles within it and say, look, it captures all these marbles, so these marbles are concrete, but the shell isn't.
So we've talked before, about attempting to steel man the other person's position, right? So that's why I'm asking you if you can tell me how I define reality.
You said the reality is real. They gave me that tautology. Is that your definition of tautology? And I'm dealing with that tautology.
So so
I'm refuting it.
a more expanded, perhaps more um, thorough definition
Okay.
is because we talked about what reality was, and I said reality's real, right? But I define reality as everything that exists. So when you talk about the bullseye, for example,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Yeah.
the outermost ring,
Mm-hmm.
the outermost ring
Is what?
exists within reality.
Wait, so there's another ring outside that you call reality to encompass all those
No,
other rings within it, right?
no. So either
Okay,
I am doing.
say it again.
Yeah,
One more
it's
time.
entirely possible that I'm doing a really bad job of explaining it, and I apologize for that.
We'll parse it out.
Reality is, for me, everything that, like, almost like Carl Sagan talked about with the cosmos. The cosmos is all there is, all there was, and all there ever will be. So reality is everything that exists,
It's an
and
abstract set.
and
It's an
within
abstract
and
set.
so within that. Oh, hey, Matt's here. And within that, sorry, I apologize for getting distracted.
That's okay. Take a moment.
And within that is everything else. So because reality encompasses everything that exists,
Mhm.
within that is, so reality dictates what is and isn't possible. Reality dictates all of the things, like within reality is logic. Within reality is everything.
You're saying
And
things
so
within the set dictate what's in the set. That doesn't make the set the definition or the instantiator of those things. You just encompass
this
them
is
under an abstract set and saying the things within the set are the things in the set. That they just
so
dictate themselves in
unfortunately,
and of themselves.
yeah, and unfortunately, this is where I think we are not going to come to agreement because that is
Okay.
just where I stop.
Yeah, that's Van Til's whole point. We're not tanking, or the person will be tanking out to something purely abstract, formal, fideistic mysticism, and they can't explain it. Even this abstract concept, it's
Okay.
universal, that
So
wants to be
here's
used
a
as a
okay.
category. But then when you make that ultimate as the outermost layer, that's supposed to be transcendental necessity, cannot stand in causal relations to things. It's purely formal and abstract, non-material, so you don't get anything extended in space deriving from it. You
Does
want to use that as
my
the outer shell encapsulating thing. I go from that locational ultimacy. It's supposed to be accounting for the things within it of its own ontology, but it's producing from this ultimate source, which is abstract, formal, immaterial, non-personal, non-intelligent in and of itself. It is cannot produce that which is extended in space, so you get no materiality from it. Doesn't stand in causal relations. Is absolute monad. There's no diversity, so you never get any plurality stemming from it. It is permanent, doesn't allow for variance or change at all. So there's not,
See, but
it's
the
just
problem is that
stalemating itself, like right there. I go, you're not deriving anything from it. You want to take the things you already have and just encapsulate it in some abstract bubble and say, my abstract bubble is the source. I go, there's problems when you assert that as the source.
so what's interesting here is that from my perspective, what I'm doing with reality
It's purely
is
mental.
what hang on, is what you're doing with God.
No, no, God's
Okay,
not
no,
abstraction.
no, but well, to me, reality isn't either. To me, reality's concrete, and this is where,
Have
and
you
this is where
universally observed reality? Or is that just a concept in your head?
we observe reality all the time.
All you observe reality holistically. You do,
Well,
Michael? You had
we
universal
talked
observation
about
of reality, Michael.
we talked
You're the
about this
empiricist.
before. No, we
Okay.
talked about this before, and that there be so. For example,
I don't even understand it, man.
there are some like we don't have the capacity. Homo sapiens don't have the capacity to see into the ultraviolet spectrum, right? But ultraviolet light still exists. It exists within reality, even though we can't see it. There are other animals that have the capacity to
Yeah,
see
that's
it.
a
That
proximate
doesn't mean
mitigated
it.
thing. Fine. But you're saying holistically. You're making that an absolute truth,
So
Michael.
you asked me if we observe all of reality. And so I don't have the capacity to see all of reality,
Well,
but
that's
even
defying your
just with,
empirical standard you laid out earlier to critique God with. So now
no,
you're
that's not
abandoning
at
your
all
own
what I did.
ship, and you're jumping ship now.
That's
But
not
you
at
went
all
on
what I
that
did.
boat earlier.
That's not at all what I did though. I think this is where we've had a couple of different, and I apologize for for not I was really trying to be sorry. Yeah, Renzo, we're not. It's just Matt and I talking. I apologize. It's nice. It's lovely to see you. Haven't talked to you in a little bit, but it's just Matt and I having a discussion. So sorry, I got distracted. Um, we have these two fundamentally different starting points, right? I don't start at the same place you do.
Correct.
I think that I think that you've made a couple of interesting arguments. I I don't think that arguments are are evidence. I certainly don't think that arguments are proof.
Mm.
We have different definitions for those two things as well. Um, but I'm thinking at this point at
Yeah, how long have we been at it here?
2 hours.
Because that was
Um,
really quick, man. Wow.
it was, and but
Okay.
but
Yeah. All
what
right.
I'd like to do is I want to make sure that I want to give you the final word, and I also want to continue this. I don't. I was totally fine with the way the conversation went. I mean, I don't even think we really got heated. We overtalked each other, but maybe only a little
I was
bit. And
just
I
trying
don't,
to stop you at the point there to get you to reflect on that
I
very
understand.
thing, So
I
like that
understand.
right
I
point
don't
there,
think
I'll
it
be
was.
like, you just jumped ship out of that empiricist
Yeah,
boat, Michael, and you got the life preserver on, you're floating in the ocean, man. I said, you jumped out of
I
that
don't think
boat
it
of
was. I
empiricism
don't
right
even
there.
think it was that big a
So
deal.
yeah.
I don't even think
So
it was
yeah,
that big a
well,
deal.
I lay out
I
enough
think
content. You go chew on it. We can come back, say, all right, man, I gave more thought to these things. I'm gonna give you time to digest or whatever, internalize this
yeah,
stuff because I threw a lot of stuff at you. You can go over the
yeah.
replay over and over and over again. People can go over it, lay it out on paper, really work through it. You can give me critiques. Saying I don't, you'd have to just show some logical issue there or whatever, and you're not gonna be able to find it because it's purely valid and in structure and everything like that. It's just you were dealing with that ultimate case there, worldview comparison there. I go, we got to get down to brass tacks. If we can, you know, fart around the minutia and stuff like that and go, well, within my worldview, this, blah, blah, blah. If you never deal with the whole package here from a transcendental worldview perspective, that's where we got to get down in just the broadest strokes and make it simple for people to say, oh, I can understand these categories. That's great. We don't have to use the fancy philosophical nomenclature or whatever. It just go, what do you believe is real? You believe you know things, and how you should live your life in light of both of those. We both got those worldviews. Let's put them side by side, do a comparison. That's how we
Mhm.
show who's holding the true one, and how you transcendentally vindicate that. Now, not everyone thinks that's the right way, but I go, that's just merely not one to up the ante to that highest level at the top of the ladder of argumentation. merely just staying on the bottom rungs going, well, I don't want to get up that high. Yeah. Okay, we can do with the sub-level arguments there, but never reach the height of transcendental argumentation there. Just dealing with the grand system of things here. Doing philosophy in the grand manner and theology in the grand manner. I think, a lot of people are just moderately allergic to them because they know they got to deal with these worldview implications. They'd rather just tank the pragmatism or some mitigated form. Go, yeah, we're not even dealing with the grand scheme of things. Just let me ping pong through pragmatism the rest of my life. They can take that purview, but don't say you're doing it holistically the way we are. Or the way the grand philosophers in the past did it, like Plato, Aristotle. At least they attempted to do it in the grand manner. They collapsed. Okay, I mean, that's why their modern guys are so timid to even do it because they're like, well, we don't want to do that. That'll be falling from extreme height. So they just go, let's just tank some mitigated thing. We're not trying to answer the grand questions, whatever. I go, well, you didn't step on the field and play ball, on this level of argumentation there. So I threw a lot of stuff at you. The illustrations there, I was just trying to lay out conceptually how the dialectic's going on. That's the helpfulness of the two sides of the page, the square of opposition and logic to illustrate those things. I can use Plato and Hume on both on the sides of the square opposition and logic to illustrate their metaphysics and their epistemology and show that they're viewing each other completely different given their opposite corners. And they're never going to jive. But showing out the rational irrationalism dialectic there, showing the rational schemes not going to encompass it because you want to assert something about the world, but then you're dealing with your own finitude. And you're dealing with absolute truth on the other hand. You just can't make them jive, apart from my worldview. So we're just showing that the other one's inferior and will not explain anything. He has this dialectical tug of war going on, where on the Christian side, there is no dialectical tug of war going on our side. We're not battling against God. We're not asserting ourselves as autonomous and then going, I'm not autonomous. Man's never autonomous in the Christian worldview. We're the Tertium quid there. There's no tug of war, dialectical ripping apart you'd have on the rational, irrational side, on the unbeliever side. So when you reflect upon that, and that's a real key point, philosophically, from the worldview. But you also got to understand the issue between that which is purely formal and abstract and that which is concrete as your locational ultimacy. There's tons of problems, and you have to keep going over them and over again, going, that's not going to do the job. I don't understand how the naturalist is viewing things. They want to have an all-encompassing, unified perspective. So they'll just use a universal abstraction.
Well, what I would
Just
say
call it a
is,
universe.
yeah,
Go ahead.
what I would say is don't when you say you understand how the naturalist, I wouldn't shoulder anyone else with the things that I've said, and I certainly wouldn't shoulder any other Christian with the things that you've said. I think we should just look at it, judge me, critique me, or whatever on the things that I say, and I'll judge you, critique you, whatever on the things that you say. From a philosophical perspective, I think you made a couple of interesting points. Shock and awe, we disagree, which is fine. I'm happy with the conversation we had. It stayed respectful, which is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
because that gives us the capacity to do this again, right?
Sure.
Because if it would have ended in a fuck you shouting match, then well, we probably wouldn't be doing this again, right? So
Right. If you want to do it again, we
that
can. We can keep it going, and
yeah. So what I'd really
you
love to
think about these
do,
things.
are you happy with are you happy with kind of like with the last thing that you said, or did you want to like
Oh yeah,
make
that's
any
fine.
other?
That's a good. That's
Okay.
just illustrating the main points we went over. Just one of those two main stages there.
Yeah.
Actually, two stages of the first part: 3-point worldview, 4-point meta narrative. So you reflect on that, on the general skeletal structure. And then when you said, "Well, I'm judging this side of the page by my side," that's why I brought up the square of opposition and logic to show that viewpoint, what you're asserting, to what I was asserting, and viewing in light of your opposite corner. So that's why I brought up that separate illustration. So it's kind of like three parts there, and those are
Hmm.
pretty digestible chunks that people can reflect on and chew on and give feedback on. So,
Yeah. I think so.
okay.